Good evening, guys. Welcome to the very first episode of The Gentleman's Club. And I'm here with my lovely co-host, GTG. How's it going, bud?
Good, man. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just relaxing at home, enjoying a nice adult beverage.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I just decided to get out of good old Dark's little live stream over there from his Final Fantasy IV playthrough, and it's just pathetic.
Actually, now that you brought that up, did he skip? Is he skipping his live stream later today, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, from what I know, he's only going to play for 3 hours. So from like 1:15 up until, I don't know, about 3 o'clock my time.
Gotcha. Okay, and that's because Cat is still sick, yeah?
Yeah, and then I guess last night he was saying he felt ill again, so he's pretty much throwing Cat right back under the bus, saying that he went ahead and gave her the illness back, some trade-off.
That's what happens when you have a weak immune system.
That's what happens when you don't get outside and take care of yourself.
That's true.
It's not like those two are swapping spit.
Not at all. Well, let's be honest, that's not his girlfriend. He shares her, so, it is what it is.
I know, I heard the gym is pretty busy these days right now.
As he should be.
I mean, somebody's got to take that horse out for a good lathering every now and then.
Hey, man, the Kentucky Derby is right around the corner. Just saying. If she's going to win the Triple Crown, you got to break that saddle in.
Yeah, somebody's got to ride her hard, but, that's how it goes. I mean, you don't take care of your things at home, they tend to fall apart.
Exactly.
Well, with this being our lovely first episode of this series, and hopefully we'll continue this podcast pretty frequently together, I was just wondering, what got you into the whole DSP vortex? I mean, me personally, I was like a fan back like 10 years ago watching his like DSP Street Fighter channel because I wanted to see some Street Fighter 4 gameplay.
Right. Interesting. Okay. I guess since I am the guest so far, for me, it was, I found out about Darkside Phil, to be honest, through the FGC. Through the Capcom United and ShoreYuken.com. I had heard about him and some of his like discretions and shit. And then when I got to YouTube, I didn't even go to his channel. I saw like early detractor stuff. Tevin, to be honest with you, is who essentially got me into the game. I used to binge watch his videos when they were a bit more frequent. Back in the day, I used to just binge watch those while I was at work. I used to listen to those while I was doing paperwork. And the more and more I started to hear him talk and go into the lore, the more and more I used to go back to the to the ShoreYuken boards and read up on it. And some of it matched. So I was like, oh, wow. And one day, I had a couple friends over, and as usual, we're watching a Tevin video, and I'm going through and I'm kind of like, I guess you could say regurgitating some of the lore. I won't go into the larger picture of it, but I was going through and I was like throwing in my insight and talking about, oh yeah, that lore is linked to this, and this is linked to this. And someone was like, you should make a video. And so the next time they came by, they were like, yo, I'll record you and go ahead and just, you know what I'm saying? Play the video and like react to it. And so that's what I did. and that's how it came to be. I think it started off with I was doing like, the series was called DSP Logic because I used to just break down his way of thinking, which I still do. And I don't know, I can't remember how many episodes I did. And then I saw the funniest shit on YouTube of this Japanese dog who was a news anchor. And I was like, yo, that would be a dope-ass avatar. And I went with that and I ran with it. And I started to see what was going on Twitter because Tevin used to name drop Dragon Killer a lot. And so when I actually got on Twitter and I started to see who Dragon Killer was, I was like, well, shit, I'll just be a parody online. You know what I'm saying? As it pertains to the news, but really it's just reactions, I guess. And there you go. It all kind of came together after a couple episodes. That's it.
Well, I appreciate your work, man. I mean, I've been following you since the very beginning of your content showing up. I pretty much turned detractor during his Kingdom Hearts playthrough. I think it was Kingdom Hearts 2, where he just went on a rant against his own chat for garbage that Panda was saying at the time. And I was like, well, why are you treating the people who give you money and to keep you going that poorly?
Because he had to protect Panda. Like, publicly. From the public standpoint, he has to protect Panda. Panda, like, trumped the fan base at the time because he always expected the fan base to be there, to be honest.
Yeah, that was kind of like the very beginning.
I'm just trying to give you, like, that's just my take on why he did it. And the thing is with Panda, if you see how he reacted to everybody during Kingdom Hearts, it's the reason, sorry, let me reword that. The reason why he treated them the way they did, because it goes back to the way he had to treat Panda. Panda was very childlike, yeah? So all he did was take that frustration he would normally have towards her, and he just threw it towards the chat. He threw it towards the fan base, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd fully agree. I mean, that was kind of planting the seeds of his whole DSP cult phenomenon going on, where you either sided with detractors at that point, or you went ahead and said, you know what, that's cool, man, whatever, protect your lady.
Yeah, I think that was definitely the early stones. I think what should have broken the fan base's back, and for some people it did, was Project 7. When he did the reboot for it.
That was a complete disaster. I mean, I saw them going through this kind of stuff, and you know, with the original Project 7, people were pretty hyped for it, and it just kind of fell through, and then it turns around and he tries to reboot it, and it just fell flat on its face, and he picked up his ball and just ran home. And you know,
let me throw this at you real quick, because you know I was gonna do a series going over it, but I'll throw some gems out right now. He never planned to do that series. It was always going to be a cash grab. It was always meant to be a cash grab. That's why, and the thing is there was a bit of premeditation. There we go. There was a bit of premeditation in all of that leading up to him making that move. Let me give you the example. Okay, so I'm not sure if I've gone over the video. I may have not. If anybody in the audience has actually heard some of this, you'll know what I'm talking about, so you can follow. But do you remember when John comes over and helps him move? John and Howard talked about this. They go over there, or John goes over there to help him move, and before they move, Phil's like, hey, who has the Project 7 shirts? And John's like, excuse me. John said it was at, I don't know, OJ's house or somebody's house. And he's like, well, can I get those? And John's like, well, I mean, if you, okay, sure, yeah, if you want them, go ahead. We're not doing anything with them. Now, the reason why these shirts are even important is because when they went to, not MegaCon, what is it called? MagFest or whatever it was, wherever that conference was or a convention where they were trying to sell the shirts off, the sales weren't there. They sold a few, but it wasn't enough to recoup the $900 nor make a profit. So they were like, well, what do you want to do with the shirts? Originally, Phil was like, oh, we'll just throw them away. And Howard was like, well, dude, I don't care. But John was like, no. We'll hold on to them, Phil. Maybe you can use them one day as like something nifty to give away, or you can use it as a perk for something, so on and so forth. And Phil, being a creature of habit, being someone who borrows from other people, took that idea and let it sit in his head for a little while. John and Howard stashed it somewhere, and then when it was time to make that move, Phil's like, let me get those shirts. So Phil moves. Phil has the fallout with these guys right here, as you remember, John and Howard, and the rest of them. And he's like, how do I get back at them and yet still recoup the money for the move, because the move was expensive, and for his decline at Machinima? I got the shirts. People still give a shit about Project 7. I'll go ahead and say I'm going to reboot this series for the next like 6 to 8 months or however long he was shilling it for. And I'll tell people, hey, donate to my Patreon, donate over the Patreon goal and whatnot to help me do this so I can write out the script. I can get people to actually come on to Project 7, which was the big perk. That was one of the, I think he had a perk level for that, where you could actually be in Project 7 if you met this goal every month. And he used all of that as propaganda, but also as a precursor to not only get back at John and Howard, but to also see how far he could push the fan base, to see how far he could get over on them, and use Street Fighter V as the excuse.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing he pulled off. I mean, that was pretty much the first time he took Patreon money and then just cut out the reward completely.
Yep.
And being it was so successful, that's when he's kept doing it over and over and over again. Reneging on his DSP Tries It. He went ahead and pushed Mario Sunshine out, and he got paid already for that game. And the reason he went ahead and threw it to the side was because he was playing too much Mario. YouTubers and other streamers do a full-on month of a certain style of game or a certain series. And it's enjoyable for their audience, but he didn't see it that way. He saw it as what it was. Straight up easy cash.
Exactly. And the fact that he couldn't profit off YouTube with that Mario content is what pissed him off even more. So when the detractors came in and were like, hey, don't let him off the hook. Don't worry about Spyro or whatever it was they used to replace the game with. Make sure he comes through on that. Because if Phil would have gotten away with that, he would have done it from there on out. He would have made them pay twice, maybe even 3 times, to play Mario Sunshine again. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, he would have said, hey, vote it in for a marathon I have coming up for a holiday or something along those lines.
Yep.
And then would have played it for 2 hours and double dipped on it yet again.
Yep. And see, the thing is, in the time that I've gone over the videos, over his videos and gone into the deep dive type stuff, you see there are times he has, like, I wouldn't say patterns, but he has increments where he does stuff like this, where he'll play a game that he's being paid to play and then drop it, or he'll do that Patriots Choice thing where, I'll do this marathon of such and such game, and then it's not even a full 7 hours. Recently, I was watching a video by Tevin, Crash Bandicoot 2, if you remember that. It was supposed to be a 7-hour marathon, and it wasn't really 7 hours. And he took a whole lot of shit for that. Or was it Crash Bandicoot 1? It was 1 or 2. And there was a big controversy over that. He's always looking for the angles in a circle, to be honest. And it's the only way, and it goes back to what I say in my videos, he doesn't respect them. So once you get the cash, which he always gets the cash up front, I'm sure you've seen that pattern, after that he does what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, even it's the whole thing with this $200 tip goal he has going on right now as well. I mean, that to him is easy money. He's just going to be like, whine and bitch and moan about not being able to pay his bills until the 15th, which he's going to get a sizable amount this time around, and he just complains about it. Yet he does things like go out for dinner, or complain about grocery shopping, or buy some other stupid crap that nobody cares about. I mean, his audience has complained recently about his film quality on his, face cam, and he refuses to get a new face cam.
Well, see, that's been an ongoing problem, to be honest. People have been talking about that for a very long time. To be honest, that right there is more Phil purposely laying the seed down for that. Let me explain real quick. So, Tevin, I think Eddie B43 went over the video a while ago. It's a really old video where Phil tried to drum up like $2,000. And I think out of the first 1,000, he took like 500 or 600 to improve his audio. And then he wanted like another 1,000 or like another 1,200 on top of that for a brand new camera. He never got the camera. And there was his fan base was like, hey, you don't need a $1,000 camera for what you do. You can do that with a nice $300 or $400 camera. Oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about. I need one with a big lens. And everybody's like, you're not a photographer. Like, are you going out into the wilderness or something? Are you doing scenery? Are you doing landscapes? No. You just need a better quality camera than what you have. But you had detractors that were like, he doesn't even need a new camera. He just needs to learn how to use his filters. He needs to learn how to edit better. Tevin went over this also. He needs to learn how to use filters. He needs to learn how to edit and post. He needs to put in some work to get the improvement. But as you and I have both seen, especially yourself, because you've been around long enough, he would rather throw money at a problem than put any work into the problem.
That should have been the same time where he went ahead and got the green screen originally, where he said he was going to set it up behind the couch and then never did. And people keep reminding him. And it just doesn't come out again. He goes, well, it doesn't fit back here. Of course it doesn't, because you're too lazy and fat to get off your ass and move the couch forward 2 feet.
Exactly. But that's how he wants to play it.
Yeah, and it was an interesting year last year. I mean, what was your favorite, blunder of his from last year? I mean, personally, I enjoyed the sponsorship saga where he got the rug cut out from underneath him with those chair deals, and it was hilarious to watch happen.
Oh, it wasn't actually a blunder, but it was probably one of the highlights of my year was because it was the first major story I covered was the escort saga by far.
Oh, that was solid gold. I mean, if you had any kind of idea about how he works, it's plausible. It was very plausible that it could have happened. However, when people started really looking into it, it was...
Yes, it was.
The brakes were pumped.
I'm overhyped about it, but you're absolutely right. The whole... Even though, if you go back and listen to my videos, you hear me say, I don't know if this is true or not, take it as a grain of salt. In the back of my own head, I was thinking... this could be possible. Because Kimberly, if you will, she reached out to me. She reached out to myself, Snor Brunel. She reached out to a bunch of people and whatnot. I even talked to her on Twitter a couple times. In DMs and shit. And her story, it sounded real good. You know what I'm saying? It was like the third or fourth best plate of barbecue I ever had. But at the same time, it's still not as good as my mom's. You're good, but you're not that good. But I'm going to still come back. It's just, it's not that good. You know what I'm saying? It's not terrible. It's not horrible. I'll bring a friend to it, maybe. But it's still not my mom's. And so that whole story had us gripped to the point where I wanted to, I even, you know what I'm saying? I had my friends over here, going through Kiwi Farms, going through Twitter and shit while I was recording, and they're like, dude, this shit is gold. But at the same time, it's Dave. So I had to take it into, you have to come in, you got to come in with some common sense. You can't just let yourself completely get led astray. You know what I'm saying? Because if not, that's how a dog goes out into the street and gets hit. Gets hit by a car. You got to use some common sense. So, by the time Medicre's video came out, which I plan on going over that because I want to revisit the escort saga, it kind of, the whole, what's her name? What's her name? The couple that was behind the whole situation. Not Barbara.
Oh, gosh.
Shit. The couple that was behind the whole con game. When that all came out, it was like, why would you guys target Phil? Or if you guys know all of this information about Phil, why would you even try to risk, using the detractors to put pressure on Phil to get this money when you know how diligent detractors are? The more the Medicare video broke it all down, the more it made me question why would they even do it. It was almost career suicide. But that's neither here nor there. The twit longer that Medicare made, I didn't see that. I didn't see that until after the fact. And when I did, it was all there. It was all there. But then that leads to the next question. How is it that someone as big as Medicare is talking about a situation that's growing in the detractor community and none of us caught it? You know what I'm saying? But then again, think about what Medicare said at the end of that video, if you ever saw it, or if any of you guys in the audience ever saw it. He was like, he's like, a whole month-long adventure that was completely exposed by one screw-up by this scamming couple, so on and so forth. But if anybody But if anybody had gone back and looked and made a tweet longer, connecting the dots with this person here and this person here, and then it did an image macro talking about how all of this is laid out and how this whole basically con job was laid out, well, there's no, maybe that person doesn't exist. Maybe they're too smart, too sexy, so on and so forth. And he's like, but maybe he's just someone who wanted to sit around for a month and watch a shit show come to pass. And I was thinking to myself, so Medicare saw the whole shit. In his genius, he let it all go down, because why not? I would have done it. But nobody else, thought about interjecting into the situation? How did that work? I still can't figure that part out. And you got to think, all eyes were on this situation. Kiwi Farms were watching it. There was people all over watching this, and we all missed that one thing, that one post by Medicare. How does that work, or how does that happen?
Yeah, it was really interesting, because that was kind of the first saga that really got me pushed into Kiwi Farms, because I wanted to find out what the hell was going on, because the news broke on it, and I was like, it sounds just too good to be true. So I had to start digging around on Kiwi Farms, and like you, I didn't see that tweet longer either for a long time. And the record got set straight, and I was like, all right, I get it. But still, it was a month-long troll fest that the poor little piggy boy had to go ahead and deal with. And it was hilarious because it didn't cost money.
Nope. And to be honest with you, that was probably the best time for Phil, because you can't really say, outside of him doing his drunken Twitter rants against the gaming community, that there was never really a time last year where he had that much attention on himself. And he really spurred out. Yeah, he got mad at it every once in a while, but essentially he wrote it out for the most part. And then when the Medicare video came out, oh, I was right, this, that, and the third, but no one cared. Everybody just had a laugh about it, and then they just kept it moving. So, in truth, he benefited over that month and a half, if you think about it.
Yeah, he probably did get a few more viewers into it, and people peeking in on it just to find out more about it and see if he'd actually trip up, because he tends to trip up on a lot of his lore. I mean, for instance, when he was talking about the whole sponsorship saga going down on his New Year's podcast, he mentioned that behind the scenes sponsorships fell through, and it was the troll's fault. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not a mind reader. I can't just jump onto his Twitter or anything like that either and go ahead and see what kind of sponsorship is coming into his lap. But apparently there was more than just that one that fell through because of trolls somehow.
Oh, it's alleged. Here's the thing that I formulated with a couple of the guys here. So even though all of us are pretty much blocked off Twitter, you know me, I'll go incognito on there, and you can check his Twitter all the time. The chances are that someone emailed Phil and wanted to do a sponsorship deal is possible. It's very, very possible. But there's a problem with that. Because we all know Phil, and Phil, yet again, is a creature of habit. If he was scouted out for a sponsorship deal, and if behind the scenes everything was green lighted, he would have told us. Immediately, he would have told us. But he didn't. So it's very possible. Oh, I'm sorry.
So I assume then that you were on the same side I am, that he went ahead and bought the seat with his own money.
Yep.
And just went ahead and fabricated the story of having a second sponsorship go through. But he wanted to come out on top because his ego can never take the L.
Exactly. Darkside Phil don't lose. Or he lost that one time and whatnot, but he's not going to lose again. So if he has to spend a little bit of money which it wasn't even his money, it was the fan base's money. If he has to spend a little bit of money to make himself look good, he'll do it. And then a couple of months later, he'll tell us the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing with the magical $6 the other day. All of a sudden, $6 came off of his tip board. And we don't know why. But we're assuming right now that, at least in my world, that was a chargeback. Somebody took $6 monies right back.
That's what I'm thinking. Speaking of which, can you fill me in a little bit, and maybe the audience as well? Because Lightside Bill said something about Phil's channel going down yesterday. His YouTube channel for like a day or for a couple hours. Did you hear anything about that?
I didn't hear anything, and I didn't see anything about his channel going down. But I don't know, and it could have been something very brief where he might be setting some videos back to private. Because with this whole AdSense thing falling through, and, you know, when he took down all of his videos and then brought them back up, a lot of his videos came out. And that's when LSB went ahead and tracked down all of those privated videos for the patrons that dropped all that money for those, which was just, you know, another edition of Ask the Pig.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, because because I saw the tweet late, but he was asking if anybody knew anything about it, and I was thinking there's a couple of gems that I think we need to take into account. Let me explain. So, as you guys know, there was that whole situation with the false flagging for the fan art, yeah? And there's a debate on whether he deleted those 400 to 600 videos or he privated them. If he privated them, it's very possible that during Spamgate, when he went ahead and released all those videos, that's from like everything before 2015, I believe, all of those pre-streams might still be up and they might be available. Or if he actually deleted them, which is my theory, and that's the reason why the views are screwed. But that's debatable. If it's true, and let's say everything was just privated, then all of those old pre-streams are out there. And if that's the case, I want my hands on them because there are gems in there. Like there are gems in those between 2013 and 2015 is where you can see Phil Burnell really become Pig Roach. Like it's all there. It's the fucking Holy Grail. You know what I'm saying? It's the Ark of the Covenant. It's the Rosetta Stone to some degree of Phil's life and where he really started to become the piece of shit that he's known to be. And like I said, if it exists, because there's very few channels that have any of that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go mining deep into the stuff that's way back there, even including his Dark Side Phil channel, I mean, I just pulled up in my last video I made his face cam reveal, where he goes off and says people are a bunch of faggots, and then at the very end he tells you to go over to his other channel to click on views, which he said that he didn't say. Which it's on video in his own channel. Still.
But the thing is, though, is if it's negative, it doesn't exist. If it's negative or if it can hurt him, it doesn't exist. We see that same thing right now with the his retrospective review thing that he wants to do, coming in later on this month or next month. There's 3 years of that he's going to have to cut out because Panda's all in there. And he's like, oh, I don't want to touch on those years. I don't want to do that. I don't want to worry about that. Because it's not just Panda. You got John and Howard. You got a bunch of people in there that he doesn't want to be associated with, or people that, in air quotes, hurt him. So he's going to cut out 3 or 4 years of his life just because he doesn't want to get hurt again. He doesn't have to want to relive it all.
Right?
That's how Darkseid works.
He did the same thing, too, when he did his whole 10-year Legacy retrospective. He screened all of the videos on his own the day before.
Yep. Except for that one video that accidentally slipped on the head Panda in it briefly.
Oh, yeah, he looked so sad when he saw that, too. He was like, oh, no, I can't play this off. And he probably just got back from a break, too, if I remember. So he couldn't get up and be like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom, guys. I'll keep it running, and run away.
Yep.
You know? Can you explain to me why, for certain people out there who might not know it, why do people call DSP the Pig Roach?
They call Phil the Pig Roach. I mean, honestly, that can be. I think the nickname belongs to Snort Burnell, is the one who came up with it. But because Phil is a disgusting pig, pure and simple. But the roach aspect comes from the fact that a roach will do will do and in some ways can survive just about anything. You know, if a roach loses its head, it can still live for a number of days. You know what I'm saying? It can burrow underground to get away from its enemies. It will eat its own. You know what I mean? It'll resort to cannibalism if there's nothing else, if it won't eat its own feces. It'll do anything to survive. And for Phil, he's a glutton. He's greedy. He's selfish. He lives only for himself. He breathes every breath only for himself. Anybody and everybody that are around him are merely food for consumption. He cares not for anybody, for anything. The roach aspect comes from the fact that despite his own shortcomings or the acts of other people who have tried to go against him, he somehow, I wouldn't say he comes out on top, but he's never truly been toppled. He's never been forced to go back into the workforce. He's never been forced to actually legitimately and with a level of sincerity apologize for his misgivings, for the people that he screwed over, for the things that he said. People just kind of let him just slide and keep him going. I think that's what Pig Roach really represents when it comes to Phil Burnell. He's someone who, despite all of the misgivings, he still continues to troop on. And to be honest, it's the one thing that I respect, to be honest with you, in the fact that he continues to keep going. He's fighting a losing battle that he could never win. Ever. The equivalent of Phil Burnell believing he can stay online for the rest of his life and live off people's back is the equivalent of Alex Seidela, Swaggins, and I don't know, name a third person who's a Phil supporter being able to get into the ring with me and win. It's improbable. It's just not going to happen. But yet he still pushes forward. And I think the reason why people come down on him as hard as they do is because if he could apply that same perseverance to something else, he could be successful. But he won't. He won't even apply it to what he does now. Sitting on his fat ass and playing video games. It's not the fact that you don't do it well. We all know you don't do it well. But you could be entertaining. You could try to edit some of the bullshit out. You could, even though he has no real creativity of his own unless he's scamming somebody, he could apply some form of creativity that he sees from somebody else and apply it to his own videos. He could be diligent if he was willing to try, but he doesn't. He spends more of his time and, if you want to call it intelligence, trying to get over on people instead of applying it to what's in front of him. The very thing that he doesn't want to leave. The very thing he doesn't want to lose. In my personal opinion.
Right? I mean, I agree with that. I mean, Ice-T said it best. If you break down on the side of your road and, you pop a tire, nobody's going to fucking stop and help you out. Unless if you're outside of that car putting that tire back on, then somebody might pull over and help your ass. You have to want it, and he doesn't want it. All he wants is the easy cash coming inside of that gout palace. And if you don't bring anything to the table, he has no need for you whatsoever. I mean, with Cat, all he wants is the eye candy to go ahead and make his little cult freak out and throw money at him for it.
But even then, he's using that. He's not even using her properly. You know what I'm saying? It's like what Jay-Z said to Nas. He's like, yeah, I sampled your voice. You were using it wrong. Okay, so let's talk about Cat Panda for a minute. Now, I'm sure you've heard that little quiff that Tevin threw out a while ago saying that it'd be funny at the end of the Dave saga that Dave comes out to be gay, or Phil comes out to be gay. Okay, let's run with that. Now, Tevin said that jokingly. But at the same time, Tevin has an incredible ability of deduction that I think we take for granted, to be honest with you. So let's run off that for a minute. Let's say that Phil might be swinging for the fences. He may be on the other side of the plate. Okay, no problem. If that's his prerogative, what he does on his spare time, as long as it doesn't require money from the fan base, it's his business until he tells us. So let's say that Phil is gay, all right, or let's say he's bi, or whatever the case may be. His obsession with John makes sense. But then, well, okay, GTG, why does he need Panda? Why does he need Cat? He needs window dressing. Phil is someone who has spent the majority of his career talking shit about homosexuality. And lately, over the last year or so, he's been trying to dial that back, but he still makes his gay jokes here or there. How is it that the realest man on YouTube, Mr. I'm Italian, which he's Polish, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, he's Polish, okay? The majority of his background is Polish, with a smidge of Italian in it. That's it. He's Polish. But for Mr. Machismo, Mr. Italian, how would it look for him to come out and be gay? Someone who's lived his life in the public eye for so long, who said the things that he said. But then when you hear Phil talk, it's about stuff getting inserted up his own ass, or some ridiculous gay joke, or, well, ridiculous dick joke, or whatever the case may be. It's always something that comes across as being gay as being something negative, to be honest with you. And he tries to spin it like it's a joke. So him coming out as gay would be problematic, because he's groomed a whole fan base to feel that exact same way. Even though, and this is all alleged, ladies and gentlemen, you know what I'm saying, trying to protect us here at the DIA and at DSP News, he's got people in his fan base that are gay, or that are at least bi. So, in truth, what he's projecting and what he's trying to secure, in a lot of ways, has a positive and a negative effect to the people in his fan base, because now that makes them confused. Well, I don't know what Phil's really thinking about me because this is how I feel. So now you build a level of insecurity amongst your own fan base, amongst individuals within your fan base. So when he says these type of jokes, that makes them feel a certain type of way. But then they're in such a negative environment that they can't speak out on him against Phil without getting some type of negative repercussion. And so now you have a conflict there too. Not just within the fan base or certain people in the fan base, but within the individual himself or herself, whatever the case may be. And for Phil, he always needs somebody there. He needs somebody there to make Phil look like he's not a total, I don't want to say loser, a loser. He doesn't want to come across as a typical loser. Think about what Phil says. I am not a techie type of guy. I am not an editor. I am not a PC builder, even though he's claimed to be all those things in the past. I am a gamer. And everything has to be simple. Everything has to be easy. So that's him shitting on gamers because that's what he's projecting. He's projecting that gamers are simple-minded individuals. Well, he doesn't want he wants to be a step above gamers then, because he believes in his own head, well, gamers don't have pretty girlfriends. They don't have big houses. They don't have nice cars. Do you see what Phil's fighting for? He's fighting for an image that doesn't even exist. There are plenty of gamers out there that have way more than what Phil does, you know, and worked way harder to get it. Being a gamer isn't an identity. It's an aspect of you. You know what I'm saying? It's only an identity if you make it as such. When I look at Maximilian, when I look at Rad, when I look at anybody, Markiplier or PewDiePie, I don't look at them as gamers. I look at them as YouTubers who play games. You see what I'm saying? You can't really look at anybody as a gamer unless they actually make money doing so. Look at Billy Mitchell. Well, Billy Mitchell's probably a really bad example now because he cheated, but Billy Mitchell, okay, who was considered one of the most prestigious gamers in the world. That's a gamer because he made his fame off gaming. He holds records. He's built businesses off of that. Phil Brunel's not a gamer. You're just a fucking slob on YouTube who plays games for a living. That doesn't make you a gamer.
Yeah, I mean, Billy Mitchell, if those viewers out there want to track him down, he was in a cool documentary called Fistful of Quarters, King of Kong, where him and a no-name guy, Steve Wiebe, were going back and forth and trading the Donkey Kong arcade machine world record back and forth for like a year straight. I mean, it was really interesting to see a professional gamer, because that's what Billy Mitchell is a professional gamer. And him going and fighting it out tooth and nail with some dad who played games in his garage for a couple hours a night. It'd be like me stepping into kind of the same Destiny arena as somebody, say, like Cammy Cakes, or, you know, jumping into some Fortnite against somebody like High Distortion or Ninja. I get wiped. But would I have myself a good time? Oh, you better believe it.
Mm-hmm. But actually, since you brought that up, let me jump in on that for just a second. The thing is with the Fistful of Quarters, and sadly, it only tells you half of the story, because while Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell were competing for this title, and you're seeing all these things that Twin Galaxy was doing behind the scenes to screw Wiebe over, and you're seeing some of Wiebe's little minions go off and, you know, try to scout Steve Wiebe and do these things to him. Which, interestingly enough, some of the very people who were sent to screw Wiebe over were the very people who, at the end of the day, had a lot of admiration for him, who respected what he did and respected his ability, and felt bad that they fucked him over to save Billy Mitchell, because they all owed Billy Mitchell in some way, shape, or form. Actually, the lawyer that was with Billy Mitchell, his best friend, the one that ended up lying back in the 70s or 80s about his centipede score or whatever it was, and then Billy Mitchell beat it that day, and they've been friends ever since. He felt bad. He legitimately felt bad for screwing over Wiebe and trying and messing with his whole machine, and sending all these guys to basically figure out what his tactics were. He felt bad for all of that, and then even despite that, Wiebe still won. But that's only part of the story. The other half of the story that I really would encourage you, if you guys want to look up Fistful of Quarters, you can find it on YouTube. There are like 3 documentaries behind the scenes that talk about what that whole purpose was, and how people had to sign away the rights to their images away, how money was getting shifted over to certain stuff. But not just that. There were 3 other competitors around that same calendar year that were fighting for that title, and no one talks about them. But all of them hold a record on Twin Galaxies and other sites respectively. Actually, the current holder of the Donkey Kong Jr. title is one of the people that they left out of this documentary, and yet this person right here was fighting for the title too. Theoretically, Steve Wiebe is the first person to hit over 1 million, and I think it was Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong Jr., or maybe even both, I can't remember. Though he was the first person.
I think it was both.
It was both?
I believe so. I think he got 1 million points for the first time in both of them. But yeah, I don't think he holds either record right now at all.
Nah, he doesn't. Somebody else holds that. So even though, yet again, thank you, Steve Wiebe holds both records, or was the first one to achieve over 1 million for both of these games. But there's like 2 or 3 other people that were in the background who completely got shut out. One guy's record, who he's currently fighting to get his record recognized, even though it's already been surpassed. He was there just before Wiebe. He didn't actually hit 1 million before Wiebe. He hit like 980-something thousand and whatnot. And then Wiebe, like 2 weeks later, ended up beating it and going to 1 million. But what they just show you was Billy Mitchell and Wiebe facing off. There was 2 or 3 other people in there too. So if you guys ever decide to look up Fistful of Quarters, definitely look up behind the scenes, the behind the scenes or anything extra included to it. And it'll tell you the whole story. It's about 5 hours altogether, but it's worthwhile. It'll give you the whole story of what's going on. And a lot of the conspiracy that leads up to why Billy Mitchell ended up getting toppled last year, and, you know, him getting exposed.
Yeah, it seems to kind of draw a lot of parallels for me to what's going on with the whole speedrunning community, with like ADGQ and all those kind of things. I mean, it's for a great cause, but if you start looking at the behind-the-scenes stuff of why people are getting blacklisted out of the whole event and the different odds and ends, it's some pretty shady stuff.
Yes, it is. And which happens whenever money is injected into a situation. Because once you put money in, and once people start getting raised to a certain type of level, then their ideas start to become priority. And once ideas start becoming priority, then people start having to take sides. And the thing that's even more interesting about the speedrunning community, I'm not trying to take any shots, there are plenty of videos on this, some of those guys faked records and then later on had them legitimized on other websites later. So don't be wrong, I'm not saying that their current records aren't legitimate. They are. They are, because now it's even harder to fake records. But back in the early days, back when you could just upload a record to a website and they took it, you know what I'm saying? That means some of your early records were fraudulent. And for a lot of those guys, it was. Now, like I said, later on, they redeemed themselves and they have legitimate records now, and they deserve all the acclimates and conditions and everything that comes to that. But before, when everything was the Wild West, people were faking records left and right. Not everybody, but, there were certain people who were faking records all day.
I mean, there were runners out there who were doing, like, different segmented runs, and that's when segmented runs actually started becoming a thing. It was because people were splicing their footage together. And people started pointing it out and saying, hey, this is not all one take. You put the game down for a while. So it's along those lines where if you really dig into it, yeah, it's whenever money's involved plus ideas, people tend to go ahead and go for their own well-being over the well-being of the entire community.
Exactly.
I mean, if we want to take it that far, if you're okay with it, we might be touching a bit later on the whole doxing situation when it comes to what's going on with Wings, and maybe even touch down into some of the SOK parallels. But first I wanted to go ahead and see what keeps you sane when you go into this whole vortex.
My life doesn't revolve around DSP. He's a hobby. He's something that he doesn't keep me up at night. He's not a waking thought. Everything that I remember is because I had to essentially put myself in it so I can report it. But I can take myself out of it, just like anybody else should. I have other things that I have in my life. I have a life, first off, which Phil does not have. I have friends. I have hobbies besides him. I have a fucking career. I got shit that I have to do. You know what I'm saying? Which is the reason why my moniker is the way it is. Always late, never breaking, unreliable coverage that you can't count on. Because unlike Dragon Killer, with all due respect to Dragon Killer, I can't keep up with his day-to-day shit. I mean, Dragon Killer barely can. He has school. He has his own shit to do, too. But I respect him and admire him to an extent because of his perseverance to try to keep up with Phil's bullshit. I can't do it. I just get around to it when I have the time to do it. I don't make time for him. It's just whenever I get around to it. And because of that, you don't get drawn into his bullshit. You know what I'm saying? What it really comes down to. At the end of the day, I didn't make my channel for recognition. I didn't do it so people know my name and I'm that next new thing. I initially did it because I just wanted to give my reactions, I wanted to give my response to it. And it kind of ended up becoming a theme. Now, what I do is still, I guess you could say it's the same thing, but I want to pave the ground or repave the ground to some degree for those who come after me. Even though I haven't been in this long enough at any extent to do anything really, I think this isn't going to end with me. It's not going to end with Tevin. It's not going to end with Theo, Argent, David Davison, Memology, Volt Boy. It's not going to end with us. Phil, as long as Phil draws breath, there's gonna be someone who's going to have something to say about it. We need to make sure that the groundwork is laid down for them so they can do just that. Whether they do it for profit, but at least stay honest to what the material is, or do it just because they have an opinion. The infrastructure needs to be there for them. I don't need to be in control of the infrastructure. Nobody does. It just needs to be there. People need to know that they can come into this community. No one wants to call it a community, that they can come into these detractor groups, if you will, and someone will be like, hey man, how you doing? What is it that you want to know? What do you need help with? Whatever. Oh, hey man, GTG, how do I get started? Who do I talk to? Okay, here's James the Lesser, here's Memology 101, here's the DIA, here's Memology. Those are your good starts. And then from there, you'll kind of evolve into everybody else. Hey man, thanks a lot. Or maybe they just need someone, like, for example, people reach out to me on DMs all the time. Like, hey, man, I love your stuff. I'm thinking about making a video. What advice do I have? Well, first things first. Don't make the mistake that I did. Don't focus strictly on Phil. Do other things besides Phil. Have a plan for yourself. So when you step into this detractor thing, whatever skills that you learn, whether to be a better talker, whether to get better at editing, whether you're just trying to tell a story about an individual, a locale, that's a very popular thing on YouTube. Whatever it is that you want to do, learn how to do it as best you can so you can apply it to something else later. This isn't going to be your end-all, be-all. Phil is merely a stepping stone for what you could do later. Remember that. You're not stuck doing this. You know what I mean? It's similar to what Medicare said to the SOK. You know what I'm saying? You guys can keep doing your shit on Phil, but also expand and do other things too. Phil will always be there to be laughed at, to be honest. So but Medicare never said take those skills and apply them to something else. He was just saying he'll always be there. So you never have to worry about Phil leaving because he's never going to leave. So, every once in a while, it doesn't hurt to go and do something else. And I think you're seeing that with the detractor community in 2017. A lot of people went into Low Tier God, 2017, 2018. Maybe 2018 is a better example. People started hitting up Low Tier God, Wings of Redemption. People started branching off into other shit altogether. Think about it. Memology 101. He went ahead and did the Better Health thing. Completely blew him up. It made him, gave him a much larger name. It also made him a much larger target. We'll talk about that in a future podcast. But you can see how Memology is a perfect example of taking the skills that he learned and was able to apply it to something else. Something that he didn't do to get recognition because he saw that there was something wrong. And he was able to address it, even when other people were too scared to do so. That's my takeaway from it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I had the idea rattled around. I actually came up with this whole thing in a dream and decided to wake up and write it down and start from there. So I started reaching out to you and to James the Lesser and find out how can I get into the game and actually make myself have a voice. And going from there, I actually got reached out to from Memology himself. He came to me and said, hey, I like your style, I like the content. It was nice for somebody like me who just started to see somebody who just blew up because of the whole Better Health thing actually still reach down and try to pull people up to his level. So Exactly. It shows you that the new breed of detractor is kind of here and is just starting to blossom, where people are done with some of the shenanigans, at least here in Phil's detractor circles, where people seem done and spent out of the whole doxing and shady gay ops and things like that, and they're tending more to reach back and keep everybody on the straight and narrow.
Well, I think because no one ever wanted it to get there. Like it's which we talked about earlier, when it comes to money and a bit of an influence, it's amazing how it can screw everything up. I don't think anybody walked into this looking at policing a community or trying to figure out what everybody's doing at every little time and whatnot. It starts to take the focus off the person whose the focus is supposed to be originally on, and it turns it into something else. And in a lot of ways, that's the reason why I would say some detractors are the way they are now, because they had gone through a major situation in their community at that time, and now either they're distrusting or they kind of just want to keep everybody at arm's reach. You know what I'm saying? And it's a scary situation.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see it with Tevin on his streams. Yeah, he'll talk about one of us from time to time here or there, but you don't see him going out and extending the hand as much, and that's mostly because of what happened to him with the whole SOK thing. And
yeah,
I just don't blame the guy for it. I mean, he got caught up into it, stumbled upon all of the stuff going on behind the scenes, and kept quiet for a very long time until his 4-hour video dropped on him, which, if you haven't seen that, you guys should definitely go and check that out. That's probably one of the biggest videos out there as far as it goes for what happened with all of that.
Absolutely.
Now, let's go a bit off topic. We're in the Gentleman's Club. We get to go ahead and relax here and talk freely about some certain things going on in the outside world. why we enjoy a nice cigar or a nice whiskey or whatever your preference is. But
Exactly.
I have been interested in professional wrestling for a very long time. I remember growing up, going over to my grandma's house, sitting in the back room, and watching Hulk Hogan just body slam people and give people the leg drop. And it kind of stuck with me, and grew up with the Attitude Era and, elbow dropping my cousin on the trampoline, things like that. I mean, I've seen your Twitter feed. You get some decent wrestling clips showing up every now and then. Obviously, you like some professional wrestling too. So, what are some of your favorite moments out there? And what's your current take on the WWE right now?
Oh, okay. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I am someone who came from a family of people who enjoy wrestling, mixed martial arts, boxing, stuff like this, okay? So, for all those who are like, oh, it's fake, oh, you're wasting your time, it's meant to be entertaining. So, that's the point. That's what I'm going to try to focus on. Let's go with the positive before we go to the negatives. When we talk about my favorite moments, I think, oh, man, I got a lot of them. I say one of my favorite matches, one of two of my favorite matches, I should say, was Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania. And only because I was a major Bret Hart fan. And when he had Shawn Michaels in that goddamn sharpshooter, I think it was WrestleMania 11, when he had Shawn Michaels in that sharpshooter, and Shawn Michaels didn't give up, but the time ran out, they should have let Bret have it. Okay? Bret should have walked away with his title, and then he could have dropped it to him the next month, or whatever the case may be. That's what should have happened. But the thing is the focus was taken away with the back alley street fight between Roddy Piper and Goldust. This is real lore for some of you guys who are old school wrestling fans. You'll remember some of this. It kind of took away from the match because that back alley brawl was something crazy. So that was...
Now, that was the whole Iron Man match, right? That they had.
Yeah, it was.
And that was a pretty legendary match. I mean, it's like an hour long. And, yeah, you can talk everything about wrestling being scripted and this and that, but those men put on a display for an hour. And it was solid through and through.
But something that some people don't know, because, now people have dirt sheets and you can look up all this, that, and the third, is that match was actually a shoot. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't remember if the outcome was supposed to be the way it was, but the initial match itself was basically coordinated between those two on the fly, because Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart in real life were having a bit of a problem. So, so some of those hits that you see out there, even though Bret holds the reputation of not hurting anybody, and Shawn has admitted that he didn't hurt, Bret never intentionally hurt him at all out there. That match out there was kind of as brutal as you get. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Shawn threw some heavy shots at Bret and vice versa, because that's what's supposed to happen. But essentially, as in however the match is played out, you guys just tell the story, because that's what it's supposed to do. That wasn't scripted. They just both went out there and did their thing. The ending, I think it was, and yet I still find it to be bullshit, because they might as well have just let Bret have it. But I'm contradicting myself, because the way the story was told in the ring and what the announcers and everything bring it all together, which is something that's sorely missing from the product currently, hence the reason why they call it a product and not the show, is it makes sense to let Shawn have it. It makes sense to let Shawn win. You know what I'm saying? Having Jose Lothario there, I think I'm pronouncing his last name right, and all the bullshit that Shawn went through early on in his career to get to where he's at, which is the same propaganda that they talk about at Shawn's wrestling school now, it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? To be honest, I just, as a fan, I was heated that Bret lost, but then again, it kept the feud going, so it worked out. My second match, though, I say one of my favorite matches is, I think that was WrestleMania 13. I think when Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin went in that. It wasn't a first blood match. I think that was an I Quit match too. with was it Ken Shamrock that was a special guest referee?
Yeah,
I
because
can't remember.
you're talking about my favorite moment in match of all time right now, which was the one where Stone Cold's wearing that crimson mask at the end of it after taking a ass whooping all night long, and he gets into the sharpshooter and he is sitting there. They're asking him if he's gonna tap, and he passes out, and you get the double turn, and by far that was the best in-ring storytelling that I can think of off the top of my head, because it's very rare to get a good solid double turn, and that was textbook through and through.
Absolutely. Because yet again, they told the story right. You know what I mean? And in a lot of ways, as leading up to that situation, that's when, Brett felt that the American fan base was turning against them, even though they weren't. They were growing. He was tired of his brothers getting shunned. Well, his brother and his brother-in-law was getting shunned, and so on and so forth. Shawn Michaels was getting on his goddamn nerves with DX. Or what was going to later form into DX. There was a lot of things going on at that time that tied together, and it helps bring the story together. So when, like you said, when Stone Cold Steve Austin passes out in a pool of his own blood, if people forget that, by the time he actually falls face down, he has literally a pool of blood that he's sitting in. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's literally sitting in his own blood, and that's back when people knew how to cut properly too, by the way. When he ends up falling into a pit of his own blood, it only added to the drama. That he would rather drown. He would rather drown in his own blood than to say, I quit the Bret Hart. Forget Bret Hart and his squeaky clean image and his 4-star general and his whole Canadian hero bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Screw all of that. You know what I'm saying? He's not man. I'm as big of a man as he is, if not better. And I'll prove it because I won't give up. Blah. And whatnot. So for those American fans who felt like they were shunned by Bret, Stone Cold Steve Austin proves that you may have a win against us, but you haven't beaten us. Which kind of falls into the whole America, no matter what you do to us, we're always going to stand back up. We're always going to stand straight. You can't break us, if you think about it.
And that kind of thing has been a theme throughout wrestling's history. It used to happen in the early 90s with, all the other side switching with, the Iron Sheik and stuff going on. And then it went ahead and kept going with foreign powers showing up. People like, Andre the Giant and Rusev. And the list goes on and on. You get a foreign power kind of heel showing up. And they just kind of wreck everything. And it's always USA comes to save the day. Be it Hulk Hogan or like the 9/11 show. They had Kurt Angle come out on top. And that guy's a real, wrestler and was a gold medalist, and it's legit, and it was one of those kind of moments that America needed at that time.
I agree, and that also goes back to what Vince McMahon wanted up until the PG era, where wrestlers weren't just wrestlers; they were supposed to be bigger than that. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it was called the spectacle. It wasn't it's sports entertainment now, but back then it was still the WWF. It was still wrestling. It's just people that were bigger than wrestling.
Yeah,
And
you had wrestlers showing up onto like talk shows and still being a heel character on a talk show or a news program or wherever they showed up outside of the ring too. I mean, it was written into your character. Like, oh, if you go to one of these events and people are yelling and screaming at you, you can yell right back if you want. Spit on them, do whatever. You're a heel, do it.
yeah, actually, a good example of that is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. When he picked up that image, Vince McMahon used to give him thousands and thousands of dollars extra, right? So when he was on the road or wherever he was at where fans could engage him, he always looked like he was the part. So Vince, at his own personal detriment, made sure that Ted DiBiase was always selling the character. You know what I'm saying? And Ted DiBiase, to his credit, always passed the money out to other wrestlers because being on the road, people go broke. You know how that works. So Ted DiBiase was always flashing that money around. So it helped his character. It allowed him to help other wrestlers. But yet again, like you said, people stay in character. And so no matter what, you believe it. WCW, to some extent, was like that too. Until wrestlers started getting heavily into drugs and drinking. And then you find that two guys that are supposed to be basically in a grudge match the next night over are in a bar drinking and laughing it up. And, Vince doesn't like that. So on and so forth.
Yeah, we saw that play out pretty well with the whole Click situation back in the day. The, guerrilla footage from the Madison Square Garden, cage bout.
And they shitted on Vince for that. Like, that right there, to be honest. I guess in a future podcast we can talk about it deeper. But, like, Madison Square Garden was literally the beginning of the end. To an extent, into Vince's control. Vince, for any of you guys who may be familiar, Vince has always been somebody who, there's always some wrestler, a big wrestler at that time, that has Vince's ear. And Shawn Michaels was always it. Now, this goes back to something we'll touch on later on about the whole ring boy allegations and all this bullshit. And then it goes back to another rumor where Shawn Michaels was bi, or he is bi, and he did sexual favors for people. That's all alleged, but we'll touch on that later on if you guys are really interested. But the amount of control, not control, but influence that Shawn had over Vince McMahon back then was crazy. Now, let me just paint the scenario really fast, and like I said, we can talk about it at a later time. So, Diesel, or Kevin Nash's Scott Hall, or Diesel and Razor Ramon, they're leaving the WCW. This is their last show in Madison Square Garden, and then they're gone. Shawn is the WWF champion, and Triple H is the next man up. He was supposed to win the King of the Ring, which I think Stone Cold Steve Austin won that year, and then he was supposed to be the next person in line for the WWF title. Curtain call happens, all that gets fucked up. Shawn is fine. They can't hurt him. They can't touch him because he's the champion. Like I said, Razor Ramon and Diesel are gone. And Triple H took all that shit. He lost out. They said he lost something like $150,000 that year in bonuses. And then he didn't win the King of the Ring, which would have been a crazy boost plus crazy money. By the way, they need to bring the King of the Ring back. And as you know, he didn't end up becoming WWF champion until what? 2001? 2002, and that was a hard fought road just getting there. So you could,
because he got buried. He got buried after that, right into the shuffle into the mid card, and the only thing that saved him was DX, was Shawn Michaels coming back and pulling him back out. And
but then people forget though too. That's not the only person who saved him. Ravishing Rick Rude ended up saving him too, which for some of you guys who are real wrestling fans, you may know this, but that's where that's the reason why Triple H took the whole Triple H moniker. He took it from Ravishing Rick Rude. It's supposed to be a tribute to him, because the 3 R's. So he went ahead and just took that and turned it to the 3 H's.
Now, what's your thoughts currently in the whole scene of professional wrestling? I mean, you have Wrestle Kingdom that just happened. You have different free agent pieces starting to move from different promotions. You have the Royal Rumble coming up here soon.
Right.
Break it down.
Okay. I think, well, first off, that new wrestling alliance that's being started that has, Cody Rhodes is like the head of it. They just signed Billy Gunn to be like an executive producer or something, and there's a bunch of new guys going over there and signing up to that. I'm sorry, I can't think of what it's called right now. I don't know if it's called like the New Wrestling Alliance or I can't think of what that new federation is called. I just started following it on Twitter. It has potential because Cody Rhodes last year had a great year. He had a great year. The state of wrestling itself outside of the WWE is great. And it could only get better. Lucha Underground still has a long way to go. New Japan is doing real good because they're starting to pick up pieces left and right. I would say wrestling as a whole is going to be okay. They have a new. I just went ahead and subscribed to it on YouTube. There's a new little wrestling promotion. It's out of Japan, I think, and it's a mix of like hip hop, martial arts, and wrestling. It's I'll send you the link later, Proper. But keep your eyes on that because that's going to be interesting. I think in the future, I think wrestling as a whole will be okay. To be honest with you, as long as people stay independent and as long as people understand what their worth is. Okay, sorry. Let's talk about what the WWE.
By the way, the promotion is All Elite Wrestling.
Thank you, All Elite Wrestling. Yeah. I have high hopes for that. I don't know why, but there's some type of nostalgia there that I hope will become something before Vince decides to crush it. We'll see.
I think the key to it, though, is that All Elite and All Out and those kind of smaller promotions are really pushing, the actual athletic wrestling that people want to see versus weird gimmicks and odd storylines. Instead, they're actually pushing their talent more than a goofy storyline where somebody has, a estranged son or domestic issues of some kind. I mean, those can be interesting. Look at the whole Hardy situation with Edge. It was happening in real life, and they brought it into that universe, so it was legit, and it added traction to it. But right now, there's no reason to invest into majority of the storylines going on in the WWE, except for maybe the women's wrestling title over there on SmackDown.
Pretty much, but that's because the WWE first off has way too much talent, and they don't have any way of distributing them anywhere. That's why their alliance with Ring of Honor they should have kept that going. Hence the reason why Ring of Honor is so good. But there's too much talent, and you can't fit everybody into everything. And so instead of breaking people up and trying to make separate storylines that you can try to branch or cross over with other things, they break it up into Raw, SmackDown, NXT. And it's just becoming too much. And to be honest, instead of them treating NXT like the D-Leagues, let that flourish and become its own thing altogether. Because how many people have come out of NXT that are actually something now that haven't been injured, that haven't been misused, that haven't been buried, or haven't just straight up left the company? It's literally a handful of people. And even the people that they do have, they didn't use properly. AJ Styles is not being used to his full potential. Finn Balor is not being used to his full potential. Samoa Joe definitely, even though he's amazing on the mic, he's not being used to his full potential. Sami Zayn was oh my god, they destroyed him. Daniel Bryan, I swear they left Daniel Bryan for dead. If he didn't start that whole yes movement, he'd be garbage. And now him as a heel, I like him as a heel personally, to be honest. I think people are scared to be heels, and they shouldn't be. But everybody's afraid that they're going to topple Triple H. So that's politics. There's a lot of people that are being wasted in the WWE. And it goes back to something that I was going to wait and do a wrestling program on, but I'll just say it now. The worst thing Vince McMahon ever did was destroy the territories. Instead of absorbing each and every one of them into the WWF, he should have just kept the territories intact and then just have a large extravaganza where he can bring different people in. So let me give you guys a brief example because I don't mean to talk you guys here long. So, like for example, Memphis, over here, Memphis, a couple of states on the East Coast, a couple of states on the West Coast, you go ahead and let them flourish. You keep letting them do their own thing. You bring your best champions in for a night of champions to compete for what is the WWF title, which the WWF has their own champion. So literally you do title for title, kind of like what WCW used to do with New Japan back in the day when Ric Flair took the WCW title, went to Japan with it, ended up winning their biggest title too, and then coming back, and then they had a little back and forth, and then eventually Japan ended up getting their title back. You can do something like that. So this way, he has multiple revenues coming in. He has a crop of premier talent that he can bring into the WWF at any time, but in the meantime, he can keep them in their respective territories. If you look at it from a business standpoint, when he's ready to move someone from Atlanta to the WWE, or to WWF, I'm sorry, at that time, that fan base goes up there with it. You know what I'm saying? And then some of the weaker people that he have that might not be used to seeing, oh, this guy from one of the northern states, send his ass to Atlanta and let him see if he can build a following there, positive or negative, and do something like that. Because that's how Vince Sr. kind of did it. He did it similar to that. Even though he had carved out his mark, Vince Sr. could call anybody in any territory in the United States and get anyone in 24 hours. And he made sure they got their money. He made sure he, had that superstar for a week or whatever it was, and he sent them back in good shape. You know what I'm saying? He never sent them back injured. And that's a problem with the WWE now. You got a bunch of dudes on the roster that are injured. And the reason why that is because you got a bunch of guys that don't have enough experience because they haven't been used properly. One of the reasons why that is because there's too many of them. And a lot of them don't understand where they need to fit in. They don't know who they are as wrestlers yet, or as entertainers. So that only leads to complications. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, do you think that SmackDown's move to Friday nights on Fox is going to help with that? Like, say they go back to what happened in the late Attitude Era where they split those brands. You were either Raw or SmackDown. There was no in-between. There was no nothing. SmackDown had different camera angles, different set pieces, different, writing. Would that kind of breed a more creative approach? Because they have to go ahead and try to get a Friday night audience then.
Well, the reason why I thought they moved to Fox is because, as you know, Vince is going to try to restart NXT, or not NXT, the XFL into 2020. So getting himself in there with Fox now would be a smart move. So when he really is ready to, if he is going to reestablish his football league, then he already has a footing. So that's what I thought that was. Because you got to think when Vince McMahon does business deals, it's like chess. To be honest, that's kind of the way he plays it. Like, for example, when you brought up the different camera angles that SmackDown had and everything. When you look at the NFL now, when you look at all those different camera angles that you see that, how you get all those different point of views, that's because of Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is the one who established that, and the NFL ran with it because he was in talks with a former NFL executive, and he passed that idea along. And so in the NFL currently, you already see Vince McMahon's hand there, so to speak. As it pertains to Fox on Fridays, I don't know. We live in a day and age where a lot of people don't watch TV anymore. So, but maybe, so I don't know how much that benefits Fox except for the football deal later on down the line. You can still watch SmackDown through the WWE Network, yeah?
Yeah, you can watch it through WWE Network or like the next day on Hulu. So, you can catch it in various ways.
Okay, so it might, I guess we'll have to wait and see, to be honest with you, because, SmackDown isn't what it was. You know what I mean? It doesn't hold the type of ground that it did. So, it could. I mean, they have to make some changes, though, because you want to bring people in, because Fox is the big leagues. You know what I'm saying? You really have to grab people's attention and be able to hold it. And wrestling is in a day and age, especially the WWE, where you can't really hold people's attention that long. Even the dedicated fan base, they just don't have it. So it depends. We'll have to wait and see. I honestly think they should make the shows shorter, to be honest.
Oh yeah, 3 hours is way too long to track all of these stories and all of the different matches, and you get filler and cut stuff. I mean, 2 hours seems to me to be the right kind of window for that, and just have a longer pay-per-view. And if they start pushing out more away from the gimmick matches and go back to, like you said earlier, King of the Ring, or other tournaments, or champion versus champion matches, things along those lines, I think you push that they're a little more serious towards their talent versus, the toilet humor that for some reason Vince loves to use.
He's just getting up there in age, and he's not ready to hand the reins over to Hunter yet. Which, as you guys know, he is the heir apparent. He is going to be the one who will have absolute control because Shane doesn't want it. For good reason, though, on Shane's part. But another thing that you brought, you said something that jogged my memory, is the reestablishment of the titles. So let me explain. Back when you and I were watching it, right? The titles meant something. The WWF title meant something. Okay, it was it. It was the crown fucking jewel. It wasn't as big as the WCW heavyweight title, which I've always favored that belt. But whatever, it's the WWF title. It means something. The Intercontinental title was the stepping stone. If you're Intercontinental champion, you're going to be the next dude up, or you're going to at least be the next person to get a shot at the title. So they need to reestablish that. And then you get into they established the European title, but then again, the NXT already has a European belt. I mean, they can still bring that. They can still make moves with that. And then all the titles that they absorbed from WCW, the U.S. belt, for example. Do we even have a cruiserweight or a lightweight division?
We do, but they tried to push it as their own brand, with the whole purple ropes and stuff like that. Yeah. We got, Mustafa Ali coming up, who, recently beat Daniel Bryan in that tag team match. Right. And he's really showcasing what those kind of wrestlers can do. And if he gets a good push right now, you could be looking at a new superstar pretty soon. Okay, so well then, like I said, reestablishing maybe a light heavyweight belt or a champion or a cruiserweight title would be a good thing. They need, for all the people that you have on the roster, you need a couple more titles just to keep things competitive, just so you can continue to build the storylines as we've been talking about. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm going to bring it up because I feel that it's needed. They need to bring the hardcore title back. They need to bring the hardcore belt back in. What are your thoughts? Oh yeah, the hardcore belt was something special back in the day, especially when they had the whole 24-hour challenge rules going, where you could be beat at any time. But the hardcore title at that time actually kind of meant a little bit, and you could showcase somebody's more brutal side to go ahead and be like, hey, they're an actual threat. You had people like Hardcore Holly being a threat to other titles because he was willing to go to the limit if needed.
Exactly. And that's what the hardcore title represents. For most of you guys who may not know, it started off as a joke title to give to Mankind. But then it kind of snowballed into this thing that the WWF wasn't expecting. But they used it properly. The hardcore title, which has been won by just about everybody. Everybody has held the hardcore title, even if it was only for a second. They've held the hardcore title. But what it was filler. When you think about when these random matches go on in the back, it was to fill space because they weren't ready for the next match to start yet. Or they weren't sure how this storyline was going to tie in with this person, so they needed something to fill that space. Okay, cool. Go ahead and see what's going on with the hardcore title. And it almost became its own little thing in itself. And it was also a shot at ECW. Let's be honest. But it was its own little thing.
Now, with ECW, though, that was a special breed of wrestling. When they brought it back, and they had one of the most fun matches to watch, which was RVD versus Cena inside that that ECW arena. And that whole pay-per-view was just fun. And that's what they're lacking. They're lacking some kind of, drive for the entire company versus, individual wrestlers. You need that overall arcing storyline, and then you need the reasons why people are doing what they're doing.
There's too many egos, sadly. Since you brought up RVD, by far one of the most talented dudes that is not wrestling right now for the WWE, who should be spending his last years there. RVD is, for someone I followed his career for such a long ass time, he's one of those special breeds. Him, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe to an extent. He's one of these special type of dudes. For any of you guys who don't know who Rob Van Dam is, Rob Van Dam is the fucking man. Okay? He's Mr. Pay-Per-View, Mr. Monday Night, longest holding ECW television champion. He's the man. Back in ECW's heyday, this is someone who would put his body on the line against anybody and didn't care. Now, you could say that was because of the weed. Whatever. The cannabis makes you fearless at times. But it made him great. And that's the reason why that the WWE didn't pick him up, or the WWF, didn't pick him up sooner. A little bit of backstory, just in case you may not know. So, if you guys have ever seen one of Rob Van Dam's matches, it's as beautiful as it is brutal. We're talking about someone who will jump off the top rope and do a front flip, like into the 6th row of the audience. You know what I'm saying? Into the crowd to get at somebody. You're talking about someone who will sit there and do his 5-star frog splash on like 4 steel chairs just so he can get the pinfall. He will literally break an opponent and break his own body in the process. And yet he'll keep bouncing back up and be like, I'm the man, and I can do that. The reason why Rob Van Dam didn't go to the WWF sooner is because no one wanted to wrestle him. No one wanted to put themselves in harm's way like that. They were afraid that, those ECW guys are fucking nuts, and if we bring them over here, they're going to hurt us. And so no one would let him in. That's the same reason why AJ Styles didn't go over there when he went sooner. When he was over there with TNA Wrestling, during and his best run was during the X Division. Everybody says it's his TNA heavyweight title runs were his best work. Nah, his best work was definitely as the TNA X Division champion. He used to brutalize dudes in that ring, and he used to make that shit look good. He used to make that shit look amazing, and nobody wanted that. It's not just the fact that Rob Van Dam and someone like AJ Styles can hurt you. It's the fact that they can outclass you. You know what I'm saying? AJ Styles is a very good wrestler. Is he like supremely technical? Is he like a Dean Malenko or RIP to Chris Benoit? Is he someone like that? Not necessarily, but he's creative. And he can take the run-of-the-mill wrestling move and turn it into something special. Rob Van Dam's the same way. He's someone who has at least a decent technical skill, who has a mix of martial art to it, and then provides a beautiful crossover between the Mexican luchador and Japanese-style wrestling. And there's people in the WWF that couldn't compete with that. Both of those men in their heydays were too fast, too strong, too creative, and were willing to hurt themselves in the process, which is what got Vince scared. That's why I'm really shocked that they signed Ricochet. If you guys have been keeping up with New Japan and some of the and Lucha Underground and so on and so forth, Ricochet, who was going by Prince Puma in Lucha Underground, he's an amazing high flyer. He's ridiculous. The guy is built out of goddamn granite, and he looks as good as he performs in the ring. He's ridiculous. He's by far one of Triple H's favorites. At the same time, he's someone who's had to tone down his abilities when he's in the WWE. So he's not completely outclassing his opponents. Whereas when he goes to Japan, he can pretty much do what he wants, and the Japanese love him no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to ever see what the actual hardcore style was and like the pinnacle of a hardcore style match, look no further than somebody like Tommy Dreamer. I mean, he's the innovator of hardcore. he was able to tell a good story and put on a decent match, and that's what it was about at that time. And then they started pushing out these more athletic wrestlers and people who were willing to do more and go to heights unseen. I mean, I saw Prince Puma just go ahead and jump off of like that upper level right there in the Lucha Underground arena, and he put just a splash onto like 8 people, and I was just like, that's impressive. You're putting your body on the line just to bring a smile to somebody's face like mine.
It pays off, at least sometimes anyway.
Now, last thing with the wrestling, do you have a dark horse for the Royal Rumble? I mean, it's one of my favorite pay-per-views. You get the cheap pop returns, you might get a surprise or two, and usually the Rumble is pretty good, with probably 92s being the best ever. So, do you have a dark horse this year?
I'm gonna say for right now, no, but I'm scared. I'm kind of scared for him that Kenny Omega might show up. I'm kind of scared that he's going to, and let me explain why. Kenny Omega is like the hot thing out there, and for a long time. Don't get me wrong, the guy's put in a whole lot of work and whatnot. He deserves everything he has coming. He's going to be wasted in the WWE. I guarantee it. He's going to be wasted. The schedule is brutal. He can't necessarily do what he wants. He's going to be restricted with people who at times he's going to have to nerf his own talent with. It's going to be a hard. I guess I'm going to say Kenny Omega if he shows, but I'm hoping he don't. I'm afraid if Kenny Omega shows up, man, it's going to be the end of his career. Now, granted, we also saw what happened to Cody Rhodes. So there's always hope, but I really don't want to see someone as talented as Kenny Omega show up. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just not that invested in the WWE product that I'd want to take one of my, I don't know, he's probably in my top 10 favorite wrestlers at the moment and put him into the ring with the way the product is now. I'm scared for him. What about yours?
I mean, my dark horse right now is probably Finn Balor. He needs a push really badly, and you could send him to the moon and get a good baby face out of it. But if Omega shows up, I mean, I wouldn't have him win. I'd actually have him get beat by somebody like AJ Styles, get thrown over the ropes, and set something up like that for, Mania. Which, if they let him be creative and let him do his thing, Kenny Omega will fly. But it's the WWE. We've seen it time and time again. You bring somebody up or bring somebody from a different promotion, and it just kind of fizzles out. I mean, it almost happened to Daniel Bryan with his return this year. It happened to the Authors of Pain, because that was a great tag team. They're running over everybody. Fizzled out. Sanity, fizzled out. Nothing. So, it would be nice, too, to see maybe Kevin Owens get a push right away if he comes back at Rumble.
Would it be fair, though, to give Kevin Owens a push coming back right away?
If they play it right and throw a slow burn to it, maybe have him and Sammy team up at first and kind of go through one more time with being friends and then having it fall apart again. Because they've put on great matches time and time again. Ring of Honor, great matches. NXT, great matches. WWE, great matches. So it's not a miss there. Now,
I can agree with that, actually. I can agree with that. I don't know, man. I don't know. I like I said, we can talk about that further later, man. But there's too much talent that's just not being utilized the way they should be. And I mean, like I said, this is my personal opinion, but until they can figure out who's going to be where and is going to do what, you're always going to have to bring back somebody like and I'm not saying this was going to happen, but someone like The Rock, someone like John Cena, one of these guys that they keep on reserve in case shit happens and have to push them back in the main event status.
Somebody like Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
I mean, they always keep somebody on retainer just to bring them back like that. But, we can definitely get into this kind of talk for another time again. Because I enjoy it fully. But I heard the other day you wanted to talk a bit about this whole gaming bubble that seems to be appearing and showing up. As goes with most media, at least in my eyes, it seems to be a lot of copy and paste, rehashing. Hey, it worked. Why not just keep repeating the process? It's making me money. It's the same thing over and over again. Different Call of Duties, different Destinies, different, GTAs, you name it. It's all just copy and paste now. Is it going to change, and what is going to change about it?
Sadly, the gaming industry won't change until it falls apart. Until ladies and gentlemen, we're at a time where we are speaking with our wallet and much larger droves, and we're at our loudest point now than we ever have been. When a shitty game comes out, we don't sit there and hold our tongue and get mad on our couch or our love seat, our gaming chair, whatever, and just soak about it. We take it to online. We go to the forums on Reddit. You go to the actual developed forums. You take it to YouTube. We spread the word as quickly as possible to let people know what's going on. Fallout 76 is a perfect example. For some of you guys, I enjoy Fallout lore. Okay, I really, really do. And I have right now. There's a bit of drama going on with a particular YouTuber who goes over Fallout lore. We'll talk about that at another time, but it's something I'm keeping my eye out on. So I'll bring that up at a later date. When they screwed us over with the packs, those little gift packs that everybody was supposed to get with the special edition, the rum that they gave, that people spent good money on, the game itself, they screwed us. I don't care how much you love Fallout, the series, Fallout 76, they screwed us in the worst way possible. And people are speaking up because we've given these big developers too many passes. Bethesda has gotten too much out of us. Activision has gotten away with too much. You know what I mean? EA has gotten away with a whole bunch. It's time at this very moment, to some extent, the developers and the publishers are in fear in a way that Gamergate never really could do, to be honest. And we'll talk about that another day too. I don't even want to talk about that shitstorm. The gaming bubble will burst. And the reason why it will burst is not just because of a lack of creativity. It's the fact that we are not looked at as gamers. We are not looked at as the priority when a game is made and developed and marketed. We are looked at as drones with money. We are looked at as the ignorant masses that, the game is only going to be half done, but you're going to be okay with that. And we're going to throw a bunch of DLC at you so you guys can get the true ending. And you're going to be okay with that. And in the meantime, we're going to have all these microtransactions that you guys are going to buy because you guys are going to need it somewhere down the line, and you can't grind out for it because we will set the bar so high for you to try to grind for this one little thing so you can get to the next part that you won't do it and you'll just pay for it because you guys are idiots. We have learned that the gaming industry looks at us as merely disposable income. They have gone from making full games, putting it on a shitty cartridge, and then whatever happened, but at least you have the full game. Whatever the problem was, you dealt with it. To now, Call of Duty, I'll use that for example, when the game comes out, it's definitely half done. Not all the maps are there. Weapons are allegedly overbalanced. And then we have a pro community within Call of Duty that can cry and complain about whatever it wants. Sorry, I'm going to call out the pro community on that. They're going to bitch and complain about whatever they want, and then it automatically gets changed. But when the casual player's like, hey, David Vonderhaar, there's something wrong with this grenade. Can you fix it? Oh, we'll look into it, and it never gets fixed. You went ahead and took the minority to the smallest base, not the minority, but yeah, I guess I'd say the minority, the smallest group within the community. The pro players, for example, it's not just their fault. The pro players, and you went ahead and made them the priority. You took these YouTubers, most of them that are on the payroll, and you took their insight to as if they spoke for all of us, and you moved with it. Now, I'm not saying that every YouTuber, Call of Duty YouTuber, doesn't speak for the community at large. Some of them do, but not all of them. But especially if they're being paid, they're definitely not exactly out for the community. They can go ahead and say what they want, but they're not necessarily there for the community per se. And you went ahead and made them the priority. So now the casuals, the people who have to make their own YouTube videos, who don't have the following, who sometimes don't get the viewership to have any real impact, and those who are on Twitter tweeting you guys 24/7, hey, please change this, please change that. Hey, think about what before you start making these balances, just get completely shut out. It's situations like that with Activision and with EA and some of these other publishers for years now have bottled up, and it's come to the point now where you guys are looking for that new Diablo game. It's not coming out for PC. It's going to come out for mobile because we think the mobile market's where it's going to be at, and you guys are just going to have to deal with it. Oh, well, when's the PC release going to come out? Oh, well, we don't know. We'll get around to it. We're not sure yet. But go ahead and get this on mobile, though. You guys all have phones, right? It's accessible to you. Go ahead and use it. And then people started smarting up and realized, oh, they're going to use this mobile game to get a shitload of money so they can fund the actual real game that everybody's waiting for. So you're basically going to put a shitty product in front of us to go ahead and fund the next project that everybody's waiting for, but you're too scared to come out and ask for crowdfunding, air quotes, and so you would rather pass this off thinking that you're giving us a product that we really want, and we don't. I don't know.
Do you think that, Epic is doing it kind of closer to the right way when it comes to, Fortnite? They've listened to the community for little things like cosmetics all the way up to changing how the entire game works. And that's probably one of the reasons why it deserves that Game of the Year candidacy that it got, was just because Epic they had their boots on the ground. They had ears into every different channel that they could get to try to make and constantly improve that game.
Yes. I would also say, though, that with Epic, the ego and the arrogance isn't there yet. So, right now, because the money's going to come in regardless. That's what Epic is learning right now, or at least for right now. Hey, the money's coming in. We'll just stack our chips and we'll give them what they want, because at the end of the day, people forget that Fortnite, the battle royale aspect of it, isn't even the real game. There's an actual game that's supposed to make up Fortnite. It just happened to be that the battle royale aspect is what took off. But then again, it is free. I think what it is there's not any ego, there isn't any arrogance there yet. So for right now, hey, let's go. We see what our competitors are doing. They're copying us, or they're trying to. Most of them are doing terrible at it, and we aren't afraid to engage our community because it's debatable whether the Fortnite community is toxic. Not as toxic as Overwatch, but it has its moments. But for the most part, we can still talk to our community person to person and still get some feedback, and we can still make things happen. As far as I'm concerned, Epic just looks at the landscape and realizes they're out front, and they're willing to do anything and everything they can to stay out front because the greed isn't there. There's so much money going around that who cares? And even if they lose the lawsuit with the people who made is it H1Z1 or is it PUBG? I can't remember which one's suing them. Could be both. But even if they lose that lawsuit, which they shouldn't, they'll still be on top. They'll still win. It is what it is. So yes, they're doing everything the way they're supposed to. The question is for how long?
Well, to me, it's going to be how long does the Battle Royale fad continue? If it's even a fad, it might be just another style of competitive gameplay, which is definitely needed.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing. I think, first off, why do we look at it as a fad? I'll ask you that question first, if you don't mind answering.
Well, initially most things will start as a fad. Take, for example, Dayglow clothing back in the 80s. People bought those up like hotcakes, or Beanie Babies, or Pogs, if you remember those. They came in a wave, but slowly and surely different aspects and components carried on to create even a more superior product. So it has to start somewhere, and right now we're seeing the very bare bones beginning of a new style of game with the Battle Royale.
All right, just the answer I was looking for. The thing is with Fortnite is legitimacy. If it can break out of the mold that you've just established and make itself actually be legitimate, be not to actually set the genre, but if it can separate itself and be that game that don't look at us as Battle Royale. Look at us as Fortnite. That's what we are. Look at us as just the game itself, and not as the battle mode, if you will, or as a survival shooter or whatever the case may be. They can survive for the most part. With that being said, it's all about how to break the eventual mold that they're going to have to break, which is being just for kids. Ninja, for whatever it's worth, has made quite a bit of money off of it, and he's drawn quite a bit of people into it. His popularity is going to go up and down regardless. What you need, to be honest, is Ninja needs to be toppled. He needs to be toppled by someone who... He needs to be toppled by someone who can draw in a crowd who wants to play the game and take it somewhat serious. I'm not saying pro gaming and all that league play bullshit. I'm saying someone else who can bring like a fresh face into it. Okay, yes, kids play this, that, and the third, but there is a skill level here. There is a skill gap to an extent. It is worth playing. Now, some people believe that's already come and gone. I've already had this conversation with somebody else online, where that aspect is already gone already. And that's why Ninja's on top. Because the fan base has been reduced to just kids and streamers, which just happen to be kids, or kids who are really wanting to try to play it and get good. The pro game route is not going to work for something like Fortnite. It didn't work for Call of Duty, to be honest. It still doesn't. I'm sorry, I haven't. For any of you who watch competitive Call of Duty, I stopped watching it around Black Ops 2, which, to be honest, which is probably my favorite Call of Duty game. That was probably the last time I actually watched it, and that's because it was the last time it was competitive. Now, as the game slowly fell down the slope, so did the competition. Fortnite could theoretically survive. It has to do something else. It has to innovate and do something new. The question is when is it going to be forced to do it? You know what I mean? Because now it's starting to try to stray away from being a fad, and it's slowly becoming more and more like a joke. And that's what Ninja proved during that New Year's special, or New Year's Eve special, is that you got a grown dude up there doing the floss, and a whole crowd is looking at him, and they're like, what's that multicolored haired idiot doing up there? I don't understand this. Why am I even here in the rain? You see what I'm saying? It has to rebrand itself in some way, shape, or form, and the question is, when is it going to do it? And I guess more importantly than that is, when is it going to have to do that?
Yeah, I mean that's a main question: is when and how can they pull it off? I mean, for example, you had the year of the console shooters, where you had Halo Combat Evolve show up, And I remember going over to my buddies' houses and just wiping the floor in LAN parties. And then all of a sudden, they went, hey, we're taking this online because you guys like to get together. And then Halo 2 shows up, and you have a whole nother world to go against. So what's next for, that kind of a genre is to be determined, but whoever gets that right will probably surpass everybody else yet again.
Now, here's my question to you. For that to happen, and even though it is Battle Royale, let's go ahead and look at it at its basis, which is first person or third person. Does Call of Duty or Battlefield have to die to let that happen?
I don't think so, personally, because, Call of Duty has been around as long as first-person shooters have been a thing, at least 3D first-person shooters. I remember playing, like, Medal of Honor and stuff like that on the original PlayStation. So, that style of game is going to be there. There is a following for it. However, it's fallen out of favor for some people like myself. I used to play Modern Warfare 2, talk, the world's greatest shit to full lobbies, and then nuke them out and then do it again. But those days have long gone because people want to sit in their little hug box party and not go ahead and cut the shit with somebody and have that banter like back in the day.
Now, with that being said, would you say that the Call of Duty YouTuber has some type of responsibility in that? Going from being a fun shooter that you could go on, nuke a bunch of people out, everybody have a laugh, then you have some salt, and then you go right back to it the next match, to now, oh shit, I care about my KD. Oh shit, I care about my win-loss. Oh shit, I want to be the next YouTuber who does this. Oh no, I can't let this happen. And then we start getting more and more of people rage quitting, dashboarding, so on and so forth. Would you throw that at the feet of the Call of Duty YouTuber, to some extent?
I think that kind of goes into most streamers out there overall. I mean, look at it. If you just go ahead and go into any kind of game and be the best at the game, yeah, you might get a spotlight on you for a little bit. But do you have staying power overall? Probably not, because there's usually going to be a drop-off in your skill set, or something's going to change in the meta to throw you off. Now, with that being said, though, I mean, you're going to have to separate yourself somehow. For example, you have your Dr. Disrespects, who's a full-blown character, and we all know it. And his content is supposed to be exciting and adrenaline-filled. And his commentary is kind of just, narcissistic and hilarious at times. Of just how projected his ego is, but that's how most people think that they have to be constantly at any kind of game. I mean, me personally, when I sit down to play a shooter, I'm trying to find a weird off-meta kind of setup to go and enjoy and just have a good time with and banter with some friends, and then if I can pull it off, crap on a full lobby.
Fair enough. I always looked at Dr. Disrespect as that, because he comes out of, the Modern Warfare type of timeline in a lot of ways. As you know, he developed maps for Call of Duty. So the way Dr. Disrespect projects himself is, in a lot of ways, I think you can agree, how we as casual players used to project ourselves over the mic in a casual lobby, yeah?
Oh yeah, that's totally what we used to do, and that's what his draw is to so many of us from the older generation. I don't need a gimmick dance. I want you to tell me that I'm going to go ahead and get my teeth kicked in, because I want that little bit of motivation to be like, I'm going to get one over on you because I can outthink you and outplay you. Versus, I'm just going to go in and dance on somebody because I got a sweet kill. I mean, that appeals to certain people, but to me, I much more enjoy that kind of banter and that back and forth. I mean, you even see it when he plays with somebody like Shroud. And Shroud's probably one of the more real guys out there on Twitch. That's how he is day in, day out. He gets on a game, he's good at it, he executes very well. But you put him together with somebody like Dr. Disrespect who fires him up and gets him firing on all cylinders, that's what a good teammate should do.
Yeah, Shroud is definitely someone special. And to be honest, he falls into an ongoing trend amongst pro players or former pro players who find that I'm going to make more money streaming than if I'm going to be on this pro team. And I don't have nearly as much stress. I can set my own schedule. I can go back to pro gaming if I want to, so this keeps me sharp. But, you know, kind of like XQC, for example, who was, Jesus Christ, he was considered, what, top 5 best Overwatch players at one time or another? And he kept getting himself in trouble with his mouth. But he was like, you know what, I don't need all these restrictions. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to just stay on Twitch full time and stream, and I'm going to make as much money, if not more. For some of you guys who don't know, XQC, allegedly, I don't have the full amount in front of me, turned down like a $1.2 million contract for a single season of Overwatch to just stream. So how much money is he making streaming if he can turn down that type of money?
Yeah, and to be honest, in my world, fair is fair. Go get your money where you can. But don't come crying to me when the money dries up. And let's bring it full circle. That's one of the biggest things about Dark that I just hate. I don't want to hear you whine and bitch and moan about your taxes, your credit card bills, your day-to-day in and out. I just want to come in, watch you get salty, and I want to laugh at you when you rage at something dumb in a game. And he doesn't get it. And it's sad to see, and he wants you to be there for an escape, and he doesn't offer that.
And the reason why is because you are his escape, not the other way around. It's almost like a form of self-indulgence, if you think about it. Phil, yet again, lives... Okay, this is going to be a hard one. Okay, when I look at YouTube, right, and I look at the people who watch my channel and so on and so forth, I don't look at you as fans. I look at you as people who either are here to listen to me and just kind of catch my thoughts. You either hate the shit out of me and you're just flying on Phil, or you're someone who on some level understand where I'm coming from. So there's a level of camaraderie there. And in turn, that opens up conversation. Phil doesn't look at it like that. Phil's early success that came so early and came so fast, you were there around the time, so you see it. When you put someone in that situation where he had some drawbacks, losing his job, doing that bullshit on Blip, losing his job, losing YouTube, losing Blip, going back to YouTube, getting on Machinima, making all this crazy money, more money than he could have ever expected to make, to get more notoriety than he could ever possibly get in real life. You have someone go through all of these things, their setbacks, and then get this large amount of success, and then get all these people who say they love you, they love your content, this, that, and the third, and you start filling the gaps of your low self-esteem. You start, because that's what it is. Phil is someone who has low self-esteem. He's someone who doesn't think, or at least at one time, didn't think very highly of himself. Wings of Redemption is another one. When you put them into a situation where they find something that they're good at, even if they're not really, but yet people are willing to praise them, then you have a problem. Because now, no matter what that individual does, he or she will believe you'll always love them. And because of that, Phil wasn't willing to move with the proper trends when he should have. Now, recently, and I mean recently only, I don't know, in the span of the last couple of days, I was thinking about why Phil didn't move to direct capture. And the reason why I'm starting to think he didn't move to direct capture is he was afraid that it wouldn't be considered a transformative work. So in turn, he would end up getting copyright struck or so on and so forth. I know that might sound awkward, but if you think about the Blip TV situation and how when he was dropped and the letter that he wrote out to them to explain his actions and so on and so forth, you might actually pick up a little bit of what I'm putting down. That's either which way. But another thing is that Phil was comfortable. People came to him because of how his content was, so he didn't see a reason to change it. What Phil failed to realize is the very thing that drew people to him, people started to get tired of. So they had to find another aspect of him to indulge themselves with. And when he wasn't willing to make those changes, then slowly but surely they started to rebel.
Yeah, and I was one of those people, front and center, and I never really could support him financially, but that was where I was in that time of my life. It wasn't anything, and I appreciated him putting out all that content at times, but when my inbox on YouTube was flooded by 45 of his videos a day that were a minute long, and then some included a setup video for 2 minutes, and it was him snorting into the mic or doing something else stupid, I got sick of it. It became more of a burden to click through and find out what was the good stuff versus getting quality content from other YouTubers that I would go and seek out.
And let me go back to your original point about supporting him financially. Theoretically, you were. Theoretically, with all those videos that he put out, and you trying to give him the benefit of the doubt and trying to find something that's worthwhile amongst the 30 or 40 uploads, which is absolutely silly, you were funding him financially, if you think about it, in some degree. The thing is that I find interesting about the people I get a chance to talk to behind the scenes, who are former fans, is how long you guys put up with that. And in some ways, I want to say, okay, you guys did it because there wasn't a lot of people at that time, or there wasn't a lot of people that you guys knew of, or because Phil was dominating the algorithm at that time, and it was probably going to be a bit more than you were willing to do for some people, to actually seek out someone else who was doing these type of Let's Plays for these newer games, and do it so quickly. At the same time, when Phil started to talk more and started to engage with the fan base, that's when you guys really started to pick up and leave, I think. Because in some ways, even if it's on a subconscious level, I think some of you learned what he really thought of you. And that in itself was the emphasis of the detractors, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little more self-respect than being called a little piece of shit or being told I am unintelligent for having a differing opinion than somebody. And so you leave his chat and you go and find a Restream or the Mirror Stream that's, Dark Dave. And you go and watch that because you don't even want to give him the pennies for the view anymore. And you go and find a detractor who's broken down all the little juicy tidbits for the day. Your Mr. Huff stuff, your David D. Davisons, Vault Boys, and you digest it that way. And then you find out that slowly you're like, wait a second, this stuff doesn't add up. And the things he says are wrong. And he's lying. And why is he lying? It's like watching your favorite sports franchise go ahead and have a terrible GM who doesn't want to improve the product because you're selling out the barn every single night. It'd be like having the Montreal Canadiens GM go ahead and be like, yeah, I don't care what product we put on the ice. This place is sold out for, the next 20 years. Anyways, so then you start watching your ticket sales drop and the product on the ice suffers. And it's the same thing with what I started seeing coming from DSP. I didn't see any improvement. People were asking for improvement, and it just never came. I mean, it took him 5 years to go to direct capture when people were asking for it straight off the bat. You should just go directly and capture it. Put on a headset, talk into that. And it was very interesting to see him try to wiggle his way around different things and why he has this setback or why he never went to that kind of, establishment. Like, he fought tooth and nail against Twitch for the longest time, and then he goes off and sucks their dick for, the last 3 years while he shits on his YouTube audience.
Which is another character trait of Phil, that he has no loyalty. He talks within the moment, and that's it. And then he moves on the next moment. And it's one of the frustrating things I think people who are former fans have of him, which is kind of one of the advantages that because if you think about it, before I get into that, if you think about it, there's 3 different types of detractors. There are people who used to follow Phil and who are fans. There are people who stumble upon him and are like, what the hell is this? And then you have those people who have heard of his infamy, who have heard of him from the FGC or something else that he's done, and then really started to deep dive. And I think
good old Fapgate, different things like that definitely brought him up into where other people find out about him. But it is, to me, you're right. There are different ways people have became detractors. People like you or James or Lester just kind of stumbled on him. Myself and Theo and, people like Vault Boy, David Davison, the Almighty One, praise be. We started out as fans and just got tired of the bullshit. And you finally take off the blinders and you go, what the hell was I thinking? And you start finding these other guys like you saying, hey, this is the bullshit that's been going on. Here's the bus. Do you want to get on and ride it with us?
Which leads into, which is going to be the lead up to the next category, Wings of Redemption. What are your thoughts?
He whines a lot, he complains a lot, but he has got the balls of a giant bull. I mean, the man tells it as it is. He says, I don't give a shit, I am doing it for the money. And that takes balls, bigger balls than Dave will ever have in his mouth. Well, maybe not. I don't know how Jim's looking these days. But still at the same time, he's had probably some of the worst trolling ever, and it's sad and pathetic when he gets into his little pity mode. But more power to him for trying to better himself and get out from under the rock that he, buried himself into all those years ago.
Now, for some of you who may not know some of the drama that's going on in Wings, at current, he's been suspended for 1 week. The reason why that is because he tried to dox somebody who tried to do a chargeback on him. He was empowered to do so because somebody behind the scenes was helping him out that ended up exposing this group called the Whale Watchers Enthusiasts. And don't worry, Agent Proper will fill us in on that in just a second. And it led into all kinds of hectic shit. But I think the reason why all of that happened, the whole situation with Wings right now has transpired, is because Josh from Kiwi Farms, who does live streams kind of regularly, to be honest with you, on Stream.me. You can find it all over YouTube. It's really easy to find. He actually has a YouTube channel, and he did a podcast. Well, he did a stream on Wings, and at the end of that stream, that's what caught my eye. At the end of that stream, he talked about what it was like entering into what's known as the Lion's Den. It's the Discord where where a lot of Wings detractors kind of propagate. And Wings, to his credit, has engaged these gentlemen twice on 2 separate occasions, going in there and trying to talk with them. And I give him credit because, yet again, like you said, Proper, DSP would have never had the balls to do that. I give Wings credit because he did it twice. But because that whole situation got shaken up, certain detractors ended up leaving, other detractors got exposed, supposedly some detractors got doxxed. I haven't looked into it fully yet, is what led to Wings getting suspended. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you have an individual who's been powerless for so long, to have a person or a group of people come to his aid and be like, you know what, we think it's messed up what happened to you, we're going to do something for you. To now Wings is like, oh, well, now you guys can't touch me now. Because if you do, I'm just going to go ahead and call the boys over here. And next thing you know, Wings ends up getting help, ends up holding the bag.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing going on with the whale watchers, it was weird. It was shades of the Sons of Kojima, and that was like the end-all be-all. I thought the detractor community for Dave was just going to go up in flames. And we got a few phoenixes to come out of those ashes, but it was embarrassing to see people try to get one over on, you know, somebody coming up. They were trying to go ahead and monetize and make sure that they were the only ones getting money from it. You know, it was bad. And then to see this happen, you know, just a few years later, you know, with the information that's coming out now, where detractors are leaving and just abandoning ship and turning around and turning against other detractors and siding back up with Wings. I mean, like Lean, it was very interesting because Lean was a banned word in Wings chat forever. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, it's cool, dude, whatever. And then now Wings is banned because he gave out somebody's actual name during the stream. And it was like, we're coming after you too fucking bad. And he owned up to that mistake. And that's a pretty big mistake, though, to drop. And this whole swirling around that, it's hard to pick it apart because it's hard to want to jump into it. For me personally, from seeing all that stuff from the Sons of Kojima, it was like, I don't want anything to do with it. Like, you pump the brakes hard, you won't touch it with a 20-foot pole, you know. And it's just staying as far away as you can from it right now until the dust settles.
Which is probably the best way to go about it, given. And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, for some of you who may have kept up with that whole Sons of Kojima thing, we didn't even get the full story. And what I mean by that is, Tevin has pointed out, a bunch of the former members of SOK have even come out and said it. You guys only got a taste of what we did. So, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know what SOK ended up doing. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about, because I think I came into the game not long after that. No one knows. Like, no one knows truly, except for the people who participated, on exactly what kind of stuff these people did and what kind of ops they were running and so on and so forth. And you see, and I guess maybe that's to the credit of the tracker community, DSPs, the tracker circles community, whatever, as it pertains to DSP, that no one wants to talk about it. But then let me put this out there. If no one wants to talk about it, it must be bad. It must be really, really bad if no one wants to speak on it. You know what I mean? Because it's not like certain people didn't have information. Jesus Christ. Somebody offered that information up to Medicare. And they were like, hey, I can give you all this. And Medicare was even like, I don't know if Medicare accepted it, but let's say he did. Even he was like, nah, I'm good. I don't even want to speak on this. And nobody really wants to. And maybe that's how it should be. Maybe dead dogs need to lie where, you know, let dogs lie where they lie. It could have very well broken up the community altogether. In some ways, it still did. You know what I'm saying? To be honest. A lot of people say, oh, we're stronger than ever. Some people are like, oh, you know, when, for example, when Jackal's Lair started his podcast, some people were trying to run up in there and be like, oh, you guys think you're the new SOK? No one's trying to be the SOK. And that also tells you,
yeah, nobody wants to be the SOK anymore. We all live through it, or people have learned from it enough to where majority of the detractor circle for DSP are more into helping each other out, trying to promote each other's work, pushing other topics. It's not just how do we run gay ops on each other, how do we run gay ops on the gay ops, and how do we troll Dave as hard as we can. I mean, DSP is a shining example of just sitting back, laughing at the guy, and watching him just trip and shoot himself right into that gouty foot of his. He's done it time and time again as somebody who's been around the game for a long time. All you have to do is just sit back and wait for it, because you know it's coming, and it's going to happen again. It's just a matter of time until all of a sudden he goes, well, Cat's not here anymore, guys. I don't know what happened. Or, oh, I can't pay my bills anymore at this house. I need to move back to Connecticut. You know, it's only a matter of time until he falls apart yet again. And you just got to chill, relax, detach when you need to, and enjoy the ride. Because if you go too hard at it, you turn into those guys like Fred Fox and some of that kind of stuff. It's just not worth it, in my opinion, to go that deep on somebody like that.
Exactly. It's not worth losing your soul. I don't know what Fred was looking at trying to attempt. I couldn't tell you. But I don't know if he started off this way or if he slowly developed this way. They say absolute power corrupts absolute. Absolutely. I don't know what it was, but that's not necessary. For any of you guys who've ever been on my channel, you've heard me say it. Give Phil enough rope and he'll hang himself. And just sit back and watch. It's all you have to do. You don't have to encourage it anymore. His desperation is entertainment enough. So just let him do what he does best. And I promise you, everything else will fall into place. All of his lies will be exposed. The more desperate he becomes, the more he talks. The more he talks, the more the truth comes out. That's all you have to do is wait. It requires some patience, but all you have to do is wait. And trust me, you have nothing but time on your hands.
Now, who would you like to bring on to this, podcast and try to talk to him a little bit more as far as fellow detractors, our good Samaritans go? I mean, there's a lot of decent people out there that float around in detractor chats, or, somebody like an LSB who has their finger more on the Kiwi Farms kind of pulse. What appeals to you?
As it pertains to insight, for sure, LSB and James the Lesser are definitely on the top of my list. For sure. I would love to also, if possible, get Theo on, see what his thoughts are. To get either Volt Boy on, or I don't think anybody's gonna ever get Snorper now. Maybe get Mighty T on and try to get some insight out of them, from the more editing standpoint, going through mountains of footage and figuring out what is appealing and what isn't. I'd like to get an idea of, what do you put on the reels and what do you leave on the editing room floor? I'd love to get some insight on that. That might help inspire people who come, later on down the line. I would say the Holy Grail is probably Tevin. I'd say he's probably the holy grail of it all. But to be honest, I think if the detractors in our graduating class kind of come together and have a strong front, maybe that will allow people. Arjun, I'd love to get Arjun on and pick his brain a little bit too. But I think if our graduating class, give or take, really come together and kind of show that we're a united front and there's a bit of understanding and communication, maybe the OGs might, be willing to talk on that level one day. Maybe. So if we're just talking about people in our graduating class, like I said, LSB, James the Lesser, Mighty D, Mimology, if he's interested. He's busy. He's a busy guy. Who else? MTC Dude. He's the one who created the DSP cinematic universe. I'm not sure if you've ever seen any of his stuff, but it's
I have.
It's a good watch.
Yeah, his stuff is like almost non-biased. He's just like sits there and chat every now and then, and he kind of breaks it down with like a 5-minute video, if that, of what kind of happens in a single day in the life of the DSP cinematic universe. And I tried to reach out to him, and he never responded to me, which was a little interesting. But I haven't heard from him recently either. So I enjoyed his content, though.
I agree. I haven't seen him either. The last time I actually saw him recently was on one of Kevin's Mixer streams, or at least someone with that name anyway. It's just the same thing I told Jackal. You're going to reach out to people. Some of them are not going to reach back. Don't take any offense to it. It just is what it is. What about you, though? Who would you be interested in getting?
I would like to get some of the old guard, like myself, to try to see what shifted their perspective. Theo, the Almighty One, various people like that. I'd also like to get somebody, like actually from the Kiwi Farms, or Eddie B. Those guys who break down every cent that comes into them. Those guys don't get enough of a shout out for the work they do sometimes, and they do great work over there on the Kiwi Farms. I mean, you can they break it down by a month and say, hey, this is about what he makes, and they lowball it too. And it's really interesting to hear from them over there, because Kiwi Farms can be either full of autistic freaking out and theories and some weird stuff going on, but if you boil it down, you can find some quality insight.
Absolutely. Definitely.
I would also like
great research. Now that you brought that up, right? And since you frequent Kiwi Farms a little more than I do, because usually Kevin or Kenny do that for me over here. When the story broke, when Medicare made his video and he talked about the whole escort situation, I want, if you remember that far back, could you give me an idea of what Kiwi Farms felt at that time? Like, what was the climate like? Did they feel like, well, damn, he got over on us? Well, not got over, but damn, he outmaneuvered us? Did anybody feel any certain type of way? I don't feel that they should. They only worked with what we had. And like I said, Brenda, that's the that was the wife's name in that con situation. When the Brenda leak came out, they were the ones who, they had it all there, which was kind of crazy. What was your thoughts around the escort saga on Kiwi Farms, and if you were on there at the time? And could you give me an idea of what the landscape was like?
Yeah, I started lurking right about that time, and it was very interesting to see the ebb and flow that went from page to page. You had people who were dead to right convinced that it was real. You had people who wanted to get doxing going, which is very frowned upon. You don't publicly let somebody know what your ideas are on for, who is doing what. I mean, same thing with this whole Emerald 7 saga. There's a thread over there, but it specifically says, if you want to dox somebody on Kiwi Farms, you better be damn sure and dead to rights correct on that. You cannot call out anybody, or they will bury you. And it was a little bit beaten around the bush. It was some back and forth banter on if it could be real or not. Some people were sitting there and going, this is really close to being real. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. With the whole Brownie Gate and all the pictures showing up. That at that time, Dave was only taking the pictures and uploading them of Kat from behind. So it was like, you can cut your hair, you can change your style. So there was a ton of dirt you had to sift through. And overall, though, it seemed like the feel on Kiwi Farms for me is that they seek out information overall, because information's king for everything. If you have facts, you're winning every single fight in every single argument you have. Yeah, you might get a little dusting up by somebody if you fail on, your theory, or your insight might be a little skewed. There's been times where I had a rough day on Kiwi Farms and I got shelled for it. And all you do is say, hey, I had a rough day. My bad. Let's move on. And it's fun. You get quite a few memes rolling through. And, like with the whole Subaru guy and that whole thing. People were pissed off at other people on Kiwi Farms for messaging the guy and not having us all have a single voice to him. Because people just can't hold off. They want to go ahead and push and try to probe and prod. And that's what scares away a lot of these whales from revealing themselves, or different information coming out. People don't want to talk, and that's their prerogative. But the internet has always been a place where you can connect the dots if you try hard enough, and it's out there, so you better own up to your shit if it's found out.
Now that you brought that up, and I'm really glad you did it. So it's funny because we work on the same wavelength. You'll see my meta in a minute. When you talk about Subaru guy and how everybody was jumping at him, I would have loved to get an interview with him, and I thought I was going to, because there was somebody else who was like, hey, if you want to talk to him, I can get you a hold of him, but I'd like to stay anonymous. I was like, shit, sure. But then some type of shit storm happened, and that didn't happen, which is kind of sad, but I get it. With that being said, and I'm not saying that Kiwi Farms had anything to do with this, because we obviously know they didn't. When you look back at when Tevin, Bill Purnell, and They Call Me Tex, when they got knocked off of Twitch, is it possible that someone in DSP, or one person, if not a group of people in DSP's fan base, were like, okay, if we're going to have deserters, if we're going to have defectors, we're going to cut off the avenues, and we're going to cut off the people who they can talk to, or they've been known to talk to, and talk about their situations, and take them off of a platform that Phil is on. What is your thoughts on that theory? Which is, it's not a Theo theory, but it's a theory I've been that I kind of just started formulating. And when they took off Tevin, Tex, and Bill Purnell, that was a coordinated attack, and it was done for a reason. But do you feel that the reason was, well, anybody who defects, they can't speak to them, or they can't speak to them on this same platform? They got to go somewhere else. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as I remember it, the leaks came out that Big Daddy Dave was sending his little white knights to go ahead and flag down their channels and deplatform them. And that stuff appeared on Kiwi Farms. And a lot of people were like, well, you're censoring other creators by doing it. And Twitch, and like most other places, YouTube, for example, with their super chats, they decide to go ahead and censor certain information in certain topics of interest, and they get pushed to the side, and you have to go somewhere else to find it. Just like what happened with, Medicare and the Ralph Report and all that kind of stuff. That got deplatformed recently, and it was because they were pushing against an agenda that Twitch didn't care for. They said, hey, we embrace that. Why are you pushing it when you're getting all this money? And YouTube freaked out and didn't want that happening, so they got pushed over to, Stream.me, which works out for them because Stream.me is saying, hey, I don't care what you put out as long as you're not an asshole.
Absolutely. The Ralph Report getting knocked down was, well, we'll talk about that as another subject for another day, but because I've been working on a video for that. That right there goes back to a video that Medicare made about the bigot dollar. And, you guys can, a group of people who say this, their money's no good because, for example, let's say they're racist, or they're too much to the left or too much to the right, or they push for like an SJW agenda or some bullshit or whatever the case may be. But so we take what we're comfortable with, and we'll embrace you and your money. But for all the rest of you, no, we don't want that. Instead of looking at it as money altogether. But then again, for YouTube, they were coming off of Adpocalypse, and then Adpocalypse kind of opened up where a lot of these little channels that were circulating that had 1 million subs, and you have people beating up their kids. You have people pushing, extremist type revenue, or not revenue, but ideas and philosophies and whatnot. You had shit that was just blatantly racist. You had what I can only describe as an extremely close version of kiddie porn. All kinds of just sick shit that was going on YouTube that I never knew about any of that. I'd never seen any of that shit. Granted, I'm not looking for it, but how was it that YouTube was able to hide all that for so long? And just for the audience's, just for some perspective, YouTube had to know about that because they were making money off of all. Now, don't get me wrong. Phil can say what he wants to say about it's all bots, and a lot of it is automated. But when you have splices of porn on YouTube and nobody's saying nothing, and it's broken down into 15 parts, you can't tell me that just flows, that just kind of skews between the lines. When I, for example, have like a 15-second clip from The Wire that doesn't even have any audio, and I get hit with a copyright claim. I mean, granted, they didn't take the video down, so thank God for that. And I don't make money anyway, so whatever. But you can't tell me you're going to hit me for that. But then I see Sarah J. and Ava Devine putting in that work, and YouTube didn't see that. You just can't tell me that's how it works, because it don't.
Right? It all tends to lead back to money yet again. I mean, it's interesting, and how our world dynamic keeps shifting with the, progression of the community called the internet is very interesting. You have people who are always going to do weird stuff. You're going to have people like the furry community. You're going to have people trying to fuck dead dogs and do horrible shit. I mean, the line should be drawn. And to me, that line really relies on, are you harming others physically and mentally or not? If you don't hurt anybody, I don't care what you do. But the moment you start preying on the weak and, hurting somebody's development, be it mentally, physically, and so on, that's where the line personally is drawn. I don't care if you come onto my channel and you're one of Dave's White Knights and you shit on me. I'm going to laugh at your comment. I'm going to screen cap it, put it on Twitter, have my friends laugh at it, and I'm going to move on with my day. But there are a lot of sick fucks out there, as we've seen coming up. And it needs to be brought out. It needs to be exposed. People like Memology 101 with his thing with BetterHelp. That kind of stuff is out there, and people just need to know that it exists and that you better have your head on a swivel out there.
As it pertains to the BetterHelp situation, I was surprised how quickly they tried to close ranks on that. And it's funny because if you see how the infrastructure was set up, Phil DeFranco was clever. He's a ruthless businessman through and through, and he deserves to be where he's at as it pertains to his success. But the way he isolated the system, the way he set everybody up to where it was almost like the mob, except for he is the godfather or the boss of bosses. He is his own consigliere and he is his own underboss. And then everybody else was lieutenants, but nobody knew nothing. Boogie was getting taken for every little penny, and he didn't even have a clue. A couple of these people knew how some of the money worked, but they didn't know about stuff on the back end. Then there's the stuff Andy Worski leaked out on his half that no one knew nothing about. It was crazy, but yet it was genius because of how he did it. And ladies and gentlemen, as it pertains to YouTubers, that's what you're going to see moving forward. This has been going on for a while, but this whole stuff with like, oh, Logan Paul and Rice Gum shit, going ahead and doing the con job shit, the whole thing with the CSGO Lotto and supposedly it's starting up again with, what's his name? Syndicate and, what is your name? What is your name? It's on the tip of my tongue too. Oh my gosh. I can't think of that kid's name right now. It'll come to me. With that whole situation with Syndicate and what's his face. You're gonna see this flow with big YouTubers taking advantage of their fan base. And the reason why is it's partly the YouTuber, obviously, because they have to make the conscientious decision to get over on their fan base. But it's also the money. The money on YouTube has been drying up. A lot of these guys have been living high off the hog for a minute, or as Dave likes to say, milk and honey. And now someone's going to come to you and be like, hey, $200,000, I only want a portion of your soul. I only want a portion of it. I only want 2% of your soul, and you get $200,000. Show this for me. And if we get caught, we get caught. You still got your $200,000. Your fan base are idiots, right? So go ahead and just push them back in the ranks, and we'll come around later with something else. Okay. And then they do it. So you got these large YouTubers who have built these crazy fan bases for all these years, and then they screw them over. And then when people like Memology or other people call them out, now all of a sudden, oh, well, I'm copyright claiming your video, or you have to take the video down. And if you guys really look, you're finding that more and more people who have slander videos, and air quotes, thrown at them are now sitting back and being like, I'm not going to take your video down anymore. I'm going to go ahead and let you work for me. I'm going to keep your video up. I'm going to monetize it. I'm going to get everything. Speaking of which, the other guy's name is T. Martin. T. Martin. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic. I mean, you have people showing up and exploding onto the scene. I remember when, Jim Medicare was sitting there doing, his light side Bob commentary over crappy DSP gameplay, and then all of a sudden he's talking about furries and social justice warriors and Sargons and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, well, he just all of a sudden, to me, started white knighting for just the average kind of dude. Does Medicare make an ass ton of money? Absolutely. But it seems like he's pretty forward with what he's getting. And he kind of deserves whatever wealth comes his way. But he's smart enough to not buy into somebody talking into his ear, as far as I can tell. It seems like he's running the show, and he is letting his crowd funding take him to new heights.
Actually, Medicare is a great example, now that I think about it. You're absolutely right on all your points. The thing about Medicare is, and in a lot of ways, he has a parallel with Tevin in some ways, in the fact that when he broke the story on Gamergate, he did it not to be leader. And this is something that I don't understand why people don't get, but I know Dante Crisis and he's someone we definitely should get on the show too. Local Slam, The Wrong Guy, just to name a couple of guys we should try to get on. I know Dante Slam will agree with me. Medicare never came out when he was the internet aristocrat and said shit about being leader. It was, hey, this is what the situation is with Zoe and the 5 guys. This is what they're doing. This is how it's going to affect us. What are you guys going to do about it? Goodbye. That's all he ever offered us. He gave us the information, and he was like, work with it. I'm not here to fight the battle for you. I'm here to have conversations about it, start a dialogue, and you guys need to start a movement. Okay? I can't do it by myself, so I'm not putting myself in that leadership position. And what ended up happening, which led to Medicare making him going from internet aristocrat to Medicare, or to Uncle Jim, is people wanted him to be on that front line. People were like, okay, we're behind you. What do you want us to do? And Jim didn't want drones. I'm sorry, but that's not what he wanted. He wanted people to go out there and think for themselves and decide on what the situation is. Because it doesn't just affect him, it affected all of us. That's what they wanted. But everybody wanted Jim because Medicare is a rarity of someone with an incredible intellect who has ultima in the world, who is not afraid to engage, yet can be approachable. I'm not sure if I'd go as far as saying sensitive. Well, yeah, actually, over that furry shit and the abuse and the child abuse and shit. Never mind. So someone who can be assertive, who can be sensitive, who's extremely intelligent but can get extremely autistic if you want him to, who will bring the fight to anybody who is willing to fight back. But at the same time, he wants us to think. When you watch a Medicare video, you're supposed to sit there, absorb the information, get your chuckles, and either A, move on with your day, or B, look into the rest of the information. Period. He's not here to take on the furry community. He's not here to take on people who want to have bike pumps shoved up their asses. He's not here to do any of that. He's here to just bring you something that's interesting to him. If you want to move with it, research it. If you want to just take it at face value and wait for the next video, so be it. Period. That's all his videos ever, at least the way I took it. That's the way his videos were pretty much put out. Instead of putting him in this position to where, okay, Jim, the army's been assembled, what do you want us to do? He never wanted that. And the reason why he didn't want it is because I think he understands how easy it is to have that. Look at Sargon. When Sargon was anonymous, just doing his videos, he had the biggest following in the world. Everybody wanted him to appear in public, do this, do that. But he was like, no, I'm okay with what it is. I just want to present the article or the story or the issue. You guys take from it what you will. But then somewhere down the line, he believed a little too much into what people told him, and then Sargon ended up coming out. And now he's the stepfather, the soy father. Oh no, sorry, Monday Matt's the soy father. He became the stepfather or whatever it is that they call Sargon. Jim, I think, has always been grounded to the point where he never had to worry about falling off that cliff. He was never even close to the cliff. He was in the helicopter watching everybody else fall. He tried to tell us not to, but we still did. At the end of the day, Jim is one of the perfect examples of human free will. The concept of a choice and how dangerous it is to have it. And on one hand, you have the right to make your own decision. On the other hand, you have a group of people who almost instinctively want to be told what to do. And that's scary. Because at a mere utterance, ladies and gentlemen, he could... I don't think people really understand how powerful Jim is. Literally, at the mere utterance, anybody can be gone. He can wipe out a whole community on his own. Let me give you an example. When you guys look at the internet blood sports community, I came up with this. I don't mean nothing by it. I'm being funny, but a lot of my friends that I've talked to offline are like, shit, you might be right. Whenever Jim finds something that's extremely entertaining to him, he likes to engage with it, like all fans want to. But then that element that wants to see Jim as the leader and are mad that he's not fighting for their causes follow him. And then all of a sudden the internet, that particular community gets stood up. I'm not saying that it's Jim's fault. I would never say that. But that's what kind of influence that he has. Even the people who hate Jim love Jim. They just don't like the fact that he won't do what they feel is important. But Jim never set out to do that. That's how dangerous he is. If you want to go that far. If Jim wanted to, he could literally tear a community down on its own. Let me give you an example. How is it that we were going on for about a month and a half over the DSP shit? He makes a video, all this information goes up, everything stops. He didn't have to save DSP. He could have let it keep going. He could have let it circle jerk into all kinds of bullshit and then make his video whenever and then still be right. He came out and he saved Phil because it was the right thing to do. Not because there was any moral gain, not because there was any financial gain. He had his fun with it. And he saw that it was probably going to turn into something that it didn't need to turn into. So you know what? Game's over. All right, kids, time to go to bed. And that's what he did. And that type of powered influence is the very powered influence people want until they have it. And then you realize, I didn't really want this. Jim has been smart enough to realize if I don't set myself out for it, I don't have to ever crave for it. I don't have to yearn for it. I can continue to be me. Now, people can say, and it's something that people do a lot. Oh, Jim, where's the video that you promised? This, that, and the third. If that's something that you haven't noticed about Jim, he goes with what he feels that he's interested in at the time. That doesn't mean he's not about fulfilling his obligations. It means that the guy goes with what grips him at that moment, what's interesting to him. Because that's what the content's supposed to be about. If I decide to quit DSP content, is the channel going to die? Probably. But if I decide to quit it and go straight to Dragon Ball, to Dragon Ball content, wrestling, then that's what I'm going to do. Because at the end of the day, if my heart's not in it, then it's going to translate into the material. Reflect it.
Yeah, I mean, Jim is a very intelligent guy. I mean, when somebody says, hey, I want to debate you, Jim, where are we going to have it out at? And he goes, okay, we'll do it on neutral ground. We'll do it the right way. And what he does is masterfully just let somebody just make an ass of themselves, and then he runs them down with facts. Things that he has pulled out from who knows where, you know, be it somebody in his little sweetie squad, which is a hilarious parody to people following other people blindly. At least in my opinion, that's what it seems like. But it just seems like to me that when he goes to war on something, it could be just snapped away. You know, just like Thanos. Just finger snap it, that thing would disappear. So if Jim wanted somebody like DSP gone, he would have been gone years ago. But Jim finds it amusing that some kind of lolcow like Dark is sitting there 36 years old in his dark little office begging children for money. He finds it hilarious, as most of us do. You know, but when people like Sargon get, you know, think that they can go ahead and swing their e-penis around, he sets them back in their place, and he does it pretty modestly, too. He's not, oh, I got you, motherfucker, and all this other stuff. He's like, you just ran yourself right into my trap. I've been sitting here waiting for you to go ahead and trip up, and that's what you did, and now here we go. Here comes the pain train, and he just runs somebody right out. And it's interesting. His insight is very well put together. His format works for him. Like you said, there will never be a topic that Jim talks about that isn't close to how he feels about it. He seems to always go right with his gut feeling, right on his heart, and you can tell that that's where it's coming from. It's not I'm just going internet drama. It's something he wants to go ahead and put out there and say, hey, I think this shit is wrong. What do you think? What are we going to do?
I also think one of the but there's a problem. There's one problem. There's the fatal flaw whenever someone gets into a debate with Jim. And you've seen it if you guys follow closely enough. You've seen it time and time again. And I never understood why they do this. And in a lot of ways, you've already said why. Whenever someone goes into an argument with Jim, in some way, shape, or form that leads to their downfall, it's either A, Jim is so much well versed in the topic that you gave him credit for, and B, you guys want to attack him personally. Now, let's talk about Exhibit A first. Exhibit A is easy. Why would Jim step into any conversation unprepared? I've seen Jim go into a conversation or a debate off with only one piece of evidence on his side and still beat somebody down. Let me give an example. There was a Furry from Sargon's camp who came through and was talking some spurgery on Twitter, and then eventually they were able to get a hold of Ethan Ralph of the Ralph Retort, and then eventually they were able to get on there and Jim made it happen. The guy said, I only went up there to do this so I could get you guys' attention. Jim said, you had some type of deviant file somewhere of different furries screwing each other, or whatever it was, something crazy. That's all Jim had, but that's all Jim needed. Essentially, all Jim had was a nail. And this guy right here was like, oh, well, what makes you think you're judge, jury, and executioner? Who says that you can go around and mess with innocent people in their lives and so on and so forth, this, that, and the third? And Jim was like, because you're the one who has what looks like a form of furry titty porn on this account, on this website. So no matter what the guy said, Jim still had that. So then what happens next? We go to Exhibit B. Oh, well, I'm going to attack Jim personally. Oh, no one sees your face. Oh, you were the leader of Gamergate and you left. You know what I'm saying? It was too much for you and you quit on us. And yada, 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 yada. And then Jim just goes ahead and engages with all that. I never said to be I was the leader. I go with what's funny to me. I never told people to sit there and put the whole fight on me. I presented something to you, and you guys had a choice. You chose to be sheep instead of going out there and being wolves. He gave us a little too much credit, if you will. And once that argument collapses, then they crumble. First things first, for anybody out there who ever listens to this and wants to get into a discussion with Jim or an argument, don't bring up anything about Jim. Stay on the topic. Period. Stay on the topic. You going at Jim doesn't do anything. All it does is feeds your frustration, which Jim will take advantage of. It's not like Jim doesn't already have you outclassed when you step into the conversation anyway. But all you're going to do is make it fun, even more fun for him. Then you're going to spurg out and get all crazy, and Jim's going to have you beat because you beat yourself. Don't do it. You've seen it with Sargon a bunch of times. You've seen it with a lot of people. And I agree with Jim when he says I can be beaten if someone can come in there with all of their facts straight, who's a little bit smarter, and who doesn't get sensitive. But no one's done that yet. Except for maybe Destiny, but that wasn't really an argument. That was really more of a discussion.
Yeah, Destiny is an interesting guy, and he's got his stuff put together. He's talked a bit about Dark in the past as well. And that whole thing was just a discussion of two people who knew how to go ahead and have an actual talk. Much like you and I right now. But I think it's about time that we start wrapping it up. And before we got started here, I posed you a very eloquent question. And that was, you and I are both big foodies, as I've seen from your Twitter feed. What is your ultimate food day? I mean, start to finish, breakfast all the way up to dessert. I mean, personally, myself, I want to start out with that hearty bacon and eggs, maybe some biscuits and gravy on the side, a glass of orange juice. You know, follow it right up into lunch with, you know, a nice bacon cheeseburger, some crispy french fries, a chocolate shake, and then you have to go with the steak dinner, be it prime rib, my favorite, or, you know, a nice dry aged ribeye, for instance.
Oh boy. Okay. Oh boy, this is gonna be hard. This is gonna be really hard. Okay, so breakfast. Okay, I want. Oh my god, I want some Belgian waffles with a cinnamon and honey butter.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, I want strawberry syrup. Oh my gosh, I want bacon. I want sausage. I want eggs, sunny side up. Oh man, drooling already. And a side of corned beef hash. Okay, so lunch. Oh, lunch. Okay, lunch. I want a porterhouse with onions, mushrooms. Obviously, you have to go with the garlic herb butter. I'll take a baked potato with all of the fixings and 2 glasses of scotch. Ah, yes. And then dinner, which will be a late dinner, by the way. For a late dinner, I have to have beef Wellington and baked Alaska. I have to have beef Wellington and baked Alaska. And then chase that with a apricot brandy, a nice cigar, and maybe just talking to some friends. That right there, I think, is my ultimate food day. or at least one of them. Oh yes, that'll be satisfying. And okay, wait a second, I'm not done yet. And if I can indulge in my personal greediness for just a second, I'd love to have a bowl of buttered pecan ice cream. Yes, that would do nicely.
That sounds like a pretty great day. I mean, I might have to add 5 pounds to my total weight after a day like that, but it would be so damn worth it. Because you gotta really treat yourself out there in life every now and then. Keep your priorities straight, stay safe, and, take care of yourself every once in a while. Life's too short for bad beer, as they say.
I agree 100%.
Well, my friend, we're going to start wrapping it up. What projects do you have coming up? Plug a couple things here.
Let's see here. So, what I'm thinking is doing a live reaction, possibly, to the Dragon Ball Heroes anime series. It's only like 7 episodes long so far, and the episodes are only like 6 to 8 minutes. So I'm thinking about doing a live reaction to that, just to kind of test the waters. I have another YouTube site or a YouTube channel that I plan to start live streaming on to cut my teeth on, and it'll kind of give me a chance to start from scratch a little bit without nuking my channel. And I don't know, I'm hoping to experiment over there to make the content that I'm doing currently better. So there's that. I have a project with Wings coming up, at least talking briefly about what the situation is. It might be a long-term series, but like I said, I'm going to wait till the dust settles a little bit because things are still kind of hot and heavy over there for whatever reason. And this year, really, I just want to kind of start collabing and whatnot because people have been asking me to collab in the past and there's time constraints. So I'm hoping to get on the Gentleman's Club with you, hopefully on a regular basis. Jump over there with the Jackal's Lair and whatnot. I'd like to see him continue to build up and do well. I think I have a program with LSB coming up, James the Lesser. There's a lot to do, but I'm looking forward to it and whatnot. And I like to think that I'm at least participating in the community as best as possible. How about yourself?
Well, aside from getting this podcast up and running, which was like my personal New Year's resolution to myself, because I've always wanted to do more of a long form, talk with just the guys. I always enjoyed the Jackal's Lair. I think that it has its own place in our little community here, because it's always nice to show that we're all just a bunch of guys who want to just talk and bullshit. Your buddies you can go and grab a quick bite and, enjoy a nice beer with. Personally, I want to get more into streaming. I was having quite a bit of fun doing that. I've been doing a lot of restreaming on DSP's Saturday morning streams, which I've enjoyed because I've had some people come in and have decent conversations with them while trying to keep them up to date on past lore, and things that I personally remember, because for some reason or another I've been blessed with near steel trap memory. So I'd like to keep going at that and then eventually start branching more into gameplay videos. There's a lot of games out there. Like, I just bought a Switch recently for Christmas. Been playing some Smash. I got into Breath of the Wild, which I'm a big Zelda fanboy. I mean, I remember watching my mom play that game when I was a little guy and, like, handwriting out the map for the original Legend of Zelda and which way to go and how to do things. So, I definitely am looking forward to trying to expand on that and try to show people my love of gaming overall. And yeah, that's what's coming up for me. But I do appreciate you coming on and looking to help co-host and anchor down the Gentleman's Club with me. It's something that I've definitely wanted to do with you since I've started talking to you just a couple months ago. And it's been a pleasure, my friend, and hopefully we can get into contact with a couple of the other guys here soon and try to, drum up another podcast maybe next Saturday. So
sounds like a plan.
We'll see how that goes, and we'll have to go and get together for a little, gout and wine one time over there on the News Network. That'd be fun. And
absolutely,
I think that wraps us up for the evening, and I'm gonna go off and enjoy a nice little glass of Jameson and relax and try to get some Breath of the Wild in. So,
all right, good deal, man. Like I said, thank you again for having me, man. I very much appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend, and I can't wait to do it again. So,
absolutely,
you'll hear from me in your comment section, and remind Asian GTG that his badge is ready to go. Yeah, let that guy in. So, he's got to get in the building somehow. He can't just keep sneaking in through the roof.
Exactly.
So, all right, man. I will see you next time, and
see you later.
Have a good one.
You too.
And that wraps it all up. That was super cool.